Hello, everyone. Welcome back to When Shooting is Life podcast. I am your host, Kue Lee, and tonight we have Christian Khang and Tanner Liang here with us. And the topic for tonight will be about concealment. So, yeah, man, for those who doesn't know you two, can both of you give a quick background about yourself? And we can start with you, Tanner.
All right. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. My name is Tanner Liang. I'm a master class USPSA carry optic shooter. Um, I love firearms. I love the topic of concealed carry. Super intriguing to me. I think it's like um, the entry into like the firearms training world. I kind of started a little training business, but I had to take a break from that. But hopefully that will pick up again soon. But that's me.
What was your business called?
I didn't honestly didn't really have a name,
Okay.
so yeah, we never really got that far.
Okay. Uh, Christian?
Yep. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Christian Kang. So my little training business is called Mountain Tribe Development, and so we do firearms training, and then we also develop training tools as well. So I've been teaching since, gosh, about 2017, 2018. So I'm currently certified as a master instructor under the Range Master program. That's Tom Gibbons' program. I'm gonna get into shooting this year, so that's something that I've been practicing a lot for. I'm pretty pumped for it. Um, I was gonna get started about a week or two ago, but then that match got canceled due to snow. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
All right, sounds good. So before we officially begin this podcast, I just want to say that this episode is more towards people that are new to concealment. So, with that being said, all three of us, we came up with some questions that can hopefully help people understand more and give them some things to think about when it comes to concealment. So, yeah, man, are you guys ready? All
Let's
right,
get started.
all right, let's start. So the first question that we have is, what does concealment mean? Any of you
Hmm.
two could start, or three
Yeah.
three of us.
I guess I'll kind of I guess I'll start this one. That's actually a really good question. Now the tricky part is that ultimately every state, every territory is a little bit different. Okay. So in the states where you can conceal carry, depends. So for example, North Carolina, when we talk about concealment, when the concealed carry laws were written by the North Carolina Senate, they did not define percentage of concealment. Okay. So what that means is that ultimately, if you are carrying a firearm, right, the amount that's visible, it's not clearly defined, right? So technically, if only like this part of the firearm were visible to the public, technically this would be considered open carry. So what typically I teach in my classes is that although legally this would be the case, and this is where we got to be careful, right? Because we've got to separate, what are kind of the legal facts versus what are the opinions. Okay, so North Carolina Senate does legislature, the laws, they did not define a percentage of concealment. Okay, legally, right, if you're only showing like a small part like this, that would technically be considered openly carried and openly visible, right? Because there was no percentage that's required by law. Okay. Now, where the rubber meets the road is that you've got to argue that to a police officer who may or may not be having a bad day. Okay. Typically, when I talk about self defense and firearms, what I usually tell my students is that what it comes down to is that self defense is other people's opinion of you. Okay. You are going to be affected by the opinions of a police officer, of a judge, a jury, prosecutor. And those opinions are also swayed by popular opinions on social media or, just your community in general. Okay. So when it comes to concealment, depends. Okay. Best thing to do is you can talk to a lawyer. A lawyer is usually the best one to talk to. There are many different types of lawyers who specialize in different things like real estate. Some of them do criminal law, things like that. A criminal defense attorney, they would probably be your best bet because they're the ones who they deal with this stuff the most. But generally, uh, from what I've seen, for many states, they don't really define like percentage of concealment. So it's tricky. It's tricky. But for my personal opinion, If your state allows for constitutional carry, which is you don't need a concealed permit to carry, then conceal that handgun. Or if you are required to get a concealed carry permit, get that concealed carry permit and carry it concealed.
All right. Tanner.
So I was the one who asked that question. The reason
Yeah.
why is because I feel like when you hear the term concealment, right, everyone's like, okay, yeah, it's hiding something, right? And I think it goes beyond that. So face value, sure, you're hiding something, but there's been a lot of times where people just throw a gun in their pants, throw a shirt over it, and they're like, cool, I'm good to go. But it's pretty obvious that there's a gun there or there's something there. So I kind of wanted to touch on a topic that I got from John Hopton over at Filter Holsters. Um, he was explaining to a class about a term that he calls telling, and that's basically not really blending into an environment.
Mm.
Um, so, for example, right, let's say you're at a business meeting. Everyone's wearing suit and ties. You show up in joggers and a hoodie, right? Obviously, you're going to stick out right away. You're drawing attention to yourself. So, in my opinion, I think concealment is a lot deeper than what it's at face value. I think that you have to blend into the environment, whether it be you're hunting, you're wearing camouflage, or you're going to a coffee shop. So you're probably not going to wear tactical clothing. You're probably going to wear something casual to fit into the environment to not draw attention to yourself. Another good example here is someone with a limp, right? When they're walking down the street, the first thing you're going to notice is that limp, and that's going to draw attention to that person. So it's just doing your best that you absolutely can to blend into the environment, whether it's the physical environment or even just like the social environment.
Nice.
Yeah, no,
I didn't think of that. That's actually a really good answer, man. What were you gonna say, Christian?
oh no, I was gonna piggyback off of that and say that yeah, Tanny, absolutely. From my opinion, you nailed it. A lot of people they don't really consider that aspect. For like me personally, whenever I'm out and about, um, I'm always a little bit jealous because I hang out with a lot of guys who wear really cool gun clothing, the t-shirts or like the Vortex hats or the Glock hats and things like that. But me personally, I don't have any firearms related clothing. This is about like the only thing that's kind of like tactical looking that I ever wear. And even this, I don't even wear this outside. This is just my inside hoodie. Um, but yeah, Tanner's got an excellent point that when it comes down to concealment, you it's it's easy to spot guys who are carrying guns. I had this conversation with my wife, and she's like, "How do you know a guy's carrying a gun?" I'm like, "Because they dress like me." Okay, so you're gonna see guys who are wearing clothing that's a little bit more outdoorsy, right? And then you can pick up there's certain things that they're going to be wearing. Usually baseball cap, usually sunglasses, right? They might be dressed a little bit more professionally, and so it can be easier to spot those guys, and it's just kind of the way they carry themselves. Well, that's if you're in the know. If you're in the know, it's easy to spot guys who are carrying guns.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, pretty much you guys said all the things I was gonna say too. And I just kind of find funny when I see like people have like gun logos on their cars, like NRA or like Magpul or like an actual rifle sticker on the car. I'm just like, dude, someone's gonna break into your car. But yeah,
Immediate.
any other things you guys want to say?
I mean, I kind of touched on printing.
Hmm.
And for those who don't know what printing is, it's when you technically have a concealed weapon, but it's still showing, right? So if you try to carry a gun that's too big and there's a bulge, somewhere on your shirt or your pant line, that's a sign of printing. And again, going back to my opinion on it, that's not really concealment. There's still something there. It's going to draw attention to yourself. And yeah, I think printing is just something I wanted to add and hit on.
Yeah, but with printing, I also noticed that I think it's gonna be mainly gun people that will be able to spot that. But if a person that's not really into gun, I think even if your gun is sort of printing, I don't think they will notice.
And
Maybe.
so I would agree, 100%. I would agree. However, me personally, I'm not concealed carrying for the average person who's on their phone 24/7 watching TikTok.
Hmm.
I'm concealing for that criminal who knows, hey,
Mm,
this guy might have a gun, or for the cop, this guy might
mm,
have a gun. And sure, a cop, whatever, but at the same time, I don't want any attention towards me. I'm the gray man. I'm chilling, trying to
mm.
enjoy my day with the family. I don't want any attention.
Nice.
So that's why I take it so seriously.
Damn. you think a lot about this, man. That's good. Yeah, I
No,
never really thought about those stuff. Um, yeah, I mean,
Tanner,
yeah.
you got to get Kue to carry. He's not carrying as much as he should be, which is he should always be carrying. You
Okay,
got to help
so
me convince him.
so the reason why I don't carry as much anymore, I still carry a gun. I mainly carry a gun when I'm with my wife and kids, is because um it depends on which state you live in, depends on the gun laws. Minnesota is we have this thing called duty to retreat, right? So what that means is that any kind of self-defense scenario you're in, you always have to do your best to escape from the threat as much as possible until you truly believe that you're going to die and there's no way escaping. That's when you can defend yourself. So the reason why I don't carry a gun as much as I should when I'm by myself is because I feel like due to the law, I could I think it's best for me to just run away. That's why I wear tennis shoes every time when I'm by myself is because I'm ready to run away. But then when I'm with my wife and kids, I feel like okay, I can't just leave my wife and kids, right? Because that would be pretty that would be considered a bitch move right there. So that's why I mainly carry when I'm with my wife and kids because I feel like it would be more justified uh, of my action if I was to defend them than to defend myself. You guys get what I'm saying? I don't want to get to too much of the law stuff, but that's the main reason why I don't really carry a gun when I'm by myself. But I do have a pepper spray and I do have these hands. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But that's one of the main reasons why I feel like I don't want to carry when I'm by myself, just because I don't ever want to put myself in a situation where I have to use a gun to defend myself and then go to court and stuff like that. But that's just my opinion. I'm not telling no one to not carry. It's just me. So that's why I mainly only carry when I'm with my wife and kids.
so I like that because you did your own risk assessment and you came up with your own reason,
Hmm.
right? A lot of people they say I don't want to carry because it's inconvenient or it doesn't work with my outfit, and
Mm-hmm.
you have like a legit reason. You thought it out, and that's your risk assessment. Hey, listen, if I'm by myself, I'm taking the priority of running. And I think that's great. I think a lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing too, where a lot of people when they take a class for their, well, in Minnesota it's called permit to carry. I know the other state called CCW, but in Minnesota, I noticed that when a lot of people take a class for their permit to carry, they don't really think about the aftermath of the shooting. They mainly think about the self-defense part, like it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Yeah, I mean that's cool and all. It's cool. It's easy to say that, but for me, when I think about like further down after the aftermath of the shooting, it's that I think that's a scary part. I think defending yourself, that's the easy part, but defending yourself in court, I think that's the scary part, and I feel like I don't want to put myself in that situation if I could avoid it. So yeah, that's just my opinion though. All right, guys. I know that I might get some hate for saying this, but remember, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not saying for you to not carry. I'm just saying for me, that's why I don't carry when I'm by myself, but I will always have a gun when my wife and my kids are with me. Yeah.
And I'll kind of echo some of the stuff because we've talked about this before. I don't
Hmm.
remember if it was on the podcast or not, but uh, dang Tanner, I love your opinions. I think you're coming at it from an awesome place. I think that's a really good thing that some people are very dogmatic in their beliefs, right? And Tanner, dude, I think that's awesome that you're willing to be cool with other people's opinions. One of my thoughts on this is that this is definitely something I picked up in Tom Given's range master class that pretty much you don't get to pick when bad things happen to you, right? You don't get to pick the level or the intensity of how bad that situation is, right? The only thing you get to pick is how prepared you are for that particular issue, right? So ultimately, it comes down to it. I've got a particular set of skills. I'm pretty good at it, right? And so if I can carry the firearm, and if I understand the legal ramifications of it, right, and I know that I'm good, I'm in the clear, okay, that I've met all the qualifications for use of lethal force in a deadly encounter, right, then I can employ the firearm, right, and then it's not always cut and dry, right? Everybody always thinks that bad guys down, and then you ride off into the sunset, and that's not how it happens in the real world, and we know that, right? We can point to many instances of that not really being the case. If you guys follow like the stuff with like USCCA and attorneys on retainer and the Kayla Giles case, that's a really good one. But essentially, she shot her ex-husband in self-defense, right? When he was trying to rip open her door and beat her, and so she shot him self-defense, but she was charged with for murdering him. Okay, and so that was if you guys, any of you guys follow the firearm space, you're probably familiar with USCCA, the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. They have they banned me because I was commenting about, hey, what's up with this Kayla Giles case. But essentially, what it comes down to is that I would rather have the option, right? I would rather have the option, right? That if it's going to be my life or your life, I'm going to pick me, right? And so something I always say in my classes is that you can fight civil cases, right? You can fight lawsuits, you can fight criminal charges. Only thing you can't fight is being dead. You only get one shot, and if you're dead, that's it, right? You can fight anything else, can't fight being dead. So that's why I encourage you, Ku. It's not for everyone. It definitely is not for everyone, right? But I think that you've got the skill and temperament to do it well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we're talking about this too, is because and I'm glad that we have different opinions, because there will be some people like me and there will be some people like you. And one thing I will want to I like to say is that I feel like when you're confident with your skill, like for example, whether it's gun or fighting, you're more likely to not escalate the situation, because you know how much damage you could do, compared to people who don't train, whether it's fighting or gun. They tend to use that as their first option, like, oh, like, okay, I can't they don't really train, so their mindset will be like, okay, I'm just gonna use my gun right away. So that's why I'm glad that we're talking about this, so that a lot of people could see different point of view. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Christian. It's just, I think maybe it just depends on the state too, to be honest with you. I do carry sometime, but maybe I just need to build a confidence of carrying a gun when I'm by myself more. I'll look into it.
I will talk. We'll
Yeah.
talk.
Tanner, were you gonna say something?
No, sorry, I just unmuted my mic.
Okay. So yeah, anything else you guys want to say, or anything else you guys want to say based on that question? All
No.
right. So hopefully you guys take notes on that. All right. So that's good. All right. So the next question that we have is, what makes a good holster, and which way do you think is the best way to conceal a pistol?
You want to go first, Tanner?
Sure, since you went first last time. So the things that I look for in a holster are
I'm going to grab a
obviously
prop. I'll be
design,
right back.
design, right? Retention, right? If you don't know what retention means, it's pretty much how well can the gun actually stay in the holster. So design, retention, material that it's made out of. Some people like leather, some people like Kydex, some people like Voltron. And then also like compatibility and modularity. And what I mean by that is, I have a perfect example for this example here. This is a tier 1 concealed APX, and obviously it's pink because it's a fun color. But this is also a thing that I kind of like to do for myself, is I like to have a bright holster, so that way when I'm reholstering, I have like a bright kind of space to look at when I holster. It's not a huge deal, but it's just something that I like, or grown to like. But anyways, this thing I can adjust. Oh, that's another thing too, adjustment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanna be able to adjust this thing to fit me, the way I carry, the way I draw. And this says like plastic clips, but I used to hate these, but honestly, I don't mind them anymore. I don't think they're that big of a deal anymore, but they are bulky. There are different clips that you can throw on here, and that's what I mean by modularity. I can throw on DCC clips. Probably can't run soft loops, but that's okay. And then for the appendix style holsters, I'm looking for the wing or claw, right? And what this is going to do, it's going to push into your belt line, and it's going to push the frame of the gun into your body more. So just those are some of the things that I look for. If it has those, then cool. I know they're probably good. They probably have good design. They probably have good intentions. I'll look into that holster company a little bit more. And just to continue, this holster has DCC clips, by the way. So these are metal, super low profile, gets the gun really close to your body, and hugs that belt in too.
Tanner should explain to the audience the advantages of a DCC clip.
Yeah, what is that? What
okay,
is
so
that?
DCC clips, it stands for discrete carry concepts. You can look them up. They have different size clips for different size belts. They even have, it's called a monoblock. I actually have one, so I can show you guys. All right, never mind, don't have them. But anyways, it's just a different style of clip. Oh, okay, Christian has one. You can show you guys.
So, this one.
Bam. Yeah, so that's a monoblock. That's what they offer. Basically, they're stainless steel, so you have the rigidness and the, I guess, reliability of your clips, making sure that the holster and the gun stays on your belt. And like I said, they're just super, super slim, super low profile. Sometimes when I carry that Olo holster and I have a smaller fitting shirt, those clips kind of print a little bit. And like I said, for me, I take it super seriously, so I kind of want a slimmer profile. They are kind of hard to get on and remove, but that's kind of the point. You don't really want this thing coming off. So, yeah.
And I got a question for you since you were talking. So you know how like some holster brand they advertise it as like high rise, mid rise, low rise. What do you think fits best for you?
So from what I found out after trying and testing all these for years, spending a little too much money on holsters, I prefer a mid cut. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, it's actually on the back side of the holster, and it's this part here, and it's pretty much, if it's low, it's gonna be really low. If it's mid, it's gonna be middle, and then high highs, right? So pretty self-explanatory there. And the reason why they have different options is just it's personal preference, right? What do you find most comfortable? Do you want to feel a gun on your stomach at all? If not, like the slide portion. If not, then you can get a high ride and then you can feel the holster instead. But those are just options, and that is something I'm looking for as well. And that goes as part of the adjustment category.
I think that's one of a mistake that a lot of people, new people, don't understand too, is that they think that since the gun has to be concealed, they usually get low rise holster, or if they would set their holster so low to the point where uh the grip of the gun is like in between their belt and their stomach. And I feel like that is the worst way to carry because that is so hard to draw. And then if it's too high, it will print through your shirt too much. So I do agree with you. I use mid rise also. Yeah, I like mid rise. Yeah. Christian, you were gonna say something?
Quick counterpoint. There's some guys who can do that extremely well. For example, like Rhett Neumeier. Rhett Neumeier does a lot of crazy things really well. One of those things that he does is that he'll wear the handgun completely below the belt line. Okay, so the gun is completely below the pants, and he can still do sub-second draws from that because he just practice and he trains because that's just what Rhett Neumeier does. And here's the thing, right? So a lot of you guys listening, you guys may hear us talk about stuff like this, but if you don't train, right, you're not magically going to be able to do these things. You're not going to be able to perform on demand when the time comes, right? This is a Scott Jedlinski thing from Modern Samurai Project where he says, do you need to be able to draw and fire in under 1 second? Only if you have a sub-second problem, right? And you don't get to pick, right? You don't get to pick if you have a sub-second problem or not. Kind of piggybacking off the talk about holsters is that there's many different types of holsters out there. Okay, this is it's like a $20 Amazon special. All right, so Tanner was talking about the discrete carry concept clips. Most of the holsters you're going to find out there, they're going to use this. We call them foamy clips, FOMI. I forgot the origin of the name. I think it was a company that was using these clips. But these clips are really popular because they're really cheap, they're really inexpensive, they're easy to put on, easy to take off. And the problem with that is that if it's easy to put on, we'll do classes where people will draw and then whoop, the entire holster just flops right out. Okay, they're not great at all because of that, right? So kind of the standard right now, amongst people who actually know holsters and firearms, is the discrete carry concept, these metal clips. And Tanner was mentioning that one of the drawbacks is that they're a little tricky to put on and take off. I've got it where I can easily put it on and take it off because you just practice with it enough and you'll get pretty good at it. This is my holster here. So this is a Filster floodlight, right? Tanner mentioned Filster. I'm a huge fan of Filster products. Many companies make holsters. Oh yeah. There are tons and tons of companies that make holsters. There are very few companies that understand holsters. Okay. And you can make holsters yourself. I've been making holsters for just random guns and things that are not typically supported, like knives, flashlights, things like that. You can just go buy Kydex sheets off of Amazon, and then you just take them in the toaster oven. You can make your own holsters, very easy. And that's how a lot of these companies started. But very few people understand holsters. If I kind of break down, say, for example, the way that I have my Filster floodlight set up, one of the best things you can do is go to the Filster YouTube channel. That's PHLSTER. They have a ton of guides on how to prevent the gun from printing, like Tanner was talking about, right? When I said printing, I mean like the gun is essentially just kind of like poking out, right? Obviously wouldn't be poking at this high, but you'd be printing from like your belly button area. If you're going to carry concealed, the whole point is not letting other people know you've got a gun. So they've also got an excellent Facebook page for you people who are old enough, like us millennials, to be on Facebook still. It's called the Filster Concealment Workshop. Highly recommend that you join it. Okay. Especially ladies. Filster Concealment Workshop, sometimes it feels like it's 75% ladies there, which is great. Okay. That's great. The way I have my Filster floodlight set up is that I kind of ascribe to the John Correa of Active Self-Protection. His kind of thoughts on, especially on reloads. I used to carry a spare magazine with me. I've kind of switched over to tourniquet now. John Correa, he talks about how he's reviewed thousands and thousands. I think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 videos of shootings, right? And he says in the context of civilian self-defense, right? Not police, not military, civilian self-defense, just regular people. Of those thousands, he's only seen like maybe one or two where they did need a reload. Okay. So where I used to carry a spare mag, I switched that over to tourniquet because even my students, we teach some of the basics of tourniquets and chest seals and things like that in our classes. Even my students, they've had to use a tourniquet on just accidents they've run into, right? Whether it's a car accident or whether it's, people work outside and, somebody gets injured with a chainsaw. There's times where my students have had to use tourniquets that they got in our class, which is why I think I highly recommend carrying a tourniquet. So that's why I have one strapped here. This right here, this is a custom piece. This is something I've been prototyping. So I've been carrying this for about a year now. So I may or may not be offering this sometime in the future, but this is how I carry mine. Anyway, kind of going off of that. You guys notice that I have a wedge here, right? I got a dad bod. I got a muffin top going on. So if you go into that Filster Concealment Workshop, even the Filster YouTube page, they often talk about wedges, right? Because if your belly kind of curves like this, what the holster is going to want to do is the holster is going to want to do, right? If your belly's curved like this, your gun's going to do this, right? And it pretty much just going to stick off the shirt. So what the wedge does is, this is just some Velcro that's glued on there. These are just helmet pads. You can just get them off Amazon. Yeah, this is like a couple bucks. Like Tier 1 Concealment, a couple other companies, they make pads. You can just get helmet pads, and this will correct that, and this will actually cause the gun to lay flatter on your belly. Okay, so especially if you got a dad bod, you absolutely need to be running wedges, so that way you kind of counter that movement, and then the gun lays flatter on the body. The DCC clips, like I said, highly recommend them because, like I said, in our classes, these little plastic clips, they're really easy to put on and they flop out all the time in our classes. Okay. So these clips, they suck. All right. Like I said, anybody can make a holster. Amazon is flooded with cheap holsters. Very few people understand holsters. like We the People holsters. Generally, you're going to see a ton of advertisements for We the People holsters. I know a ton of people who show up to class with them. They're they're not the best. They're not the worst, but they're not the best. Tanner was talking about this. Some people call it a wing, some people call it a claw. Essentially, what this does is this presses against the belt and then it tucks the grip in, because the grip is really what's going to stick out. This part right here is really what's going to poke through the shirt. So the grip really pushes. Oh, I'm sorry, the claw of the wing, it pushes the gun closer in towards the body, and then the wedge tilts it a little bit closer in too. So with a setup like this, I can carry a Glock 34, and it's still very concealable. So yeah, um, some of the brands that we like to recommend is Filster, Tier One Concealment. Some of the T-Rex Arms products are not too bad. Those are just some of the ones that come to mind when I talk about good holsters. Oh, and also you can't talk about Filster if you're not going to talk about the Filster Enigma, which is essentially a belt system. So it's a belt, attaches to that holster, and then you can wear it in gym shorts, wear it with sweatpants. No belt needed, because the whole thing is its own little belt system.
Yeah, man, I'm glad that you brought up the difference between people that make holster and people that know holster. So, for example, I wish I knew this sooner, but how I pick a holster now, it depends on their how they advertise it. So the reason why I like T-Rex Arm Sidecar 2.0 is because Lucas Bakken, he back up what he say, so he always posting videos of him actually drawing from his holster and shooting and stuff like that. So that's why, me personally, I trust the Sidecar 2.0 compared to other holster company where, yeah, it's a holster, but they don't actually show you that they actually know what they're talking about. So for me, for my recommendation for like that are new to concealment, before you pick a holster, make sure you pick a holster from people that actually know what a holster is and people that actually show their shooting using their products. So with that being said, do you guys think expensive always mean better?
Christian, before we answer that question, I have three things for you. FOAMI stands for fold over something injected. That
Okay.
Yeah. I forgot what that M is, but it's fold
Mhm.
over something injected. Um, Second question I had for you, or not really a question, but kind of
Mhm.
like a piggyback off of you. The wedge also adds a ton of comfort. It reduces a hot spot so a hot spot is pretty much when something like rubs against you for a long period and you kind of get chafing or just makes it sore. That wedge helps out with comfort. So if you're struggling with comfort and concealing for long durations and makes you not want to carry, consider a wedge. Um, and then my third question was, are you running like a leg leash on that Enigma?
This one I'm not. This one's set up for a P365, which I've got over here somewhere. So yeah, really quick. So for those of you who don't know what Tanner's talking about, the Filster Enigma, right, which is the belt and holster system. Typically, it's run with it's almost like a piece of string that comes around and then it loops around your thigh, right? And so one of the things that we love about Filster is that they know holsters, and when it comes to products like the Enigma, they tested it by essentially wearing it while doing jujitsu, ground fighting. Okay. And one of the problems they found is that I believe it'll start to tilt, it'll start to move, especially if you're on the ground. And I believe that's what the leg leash corrects for, right?
I'm not too sure. I thought the leg leash was just there to kind of keep the holster in place as you draw out. Because there's been times where I don't use it, just like I'm gonna try it on real quick, do a draw, see if it's good for adjustment wise. And when I don't put the leg leash on, everything slides out. Like the whole enigma will slide up. Then I throw the leg leash on, and it helps it stay because I can feel the pressure, the tension of the string getting tight. So I don't really know what the purpose was. So that's why I was just asking if there's a reason or why.
That's definitely is one of the reasons why I have a dad bod muffin top. So when I'm running a wedge on it, the wedge keeps it in. So that's never happened to me because I've got it wedged under my belly, so the wedge keeps it solidly locked in there. So that's why I took off the leg leash.
Okay, perfect, awesome. That's it. Keep sorry for interrupting you.
No, no, no. That's good. It's good that you asked those questions because I didn't even know about those holster.
Mhm.
Um, and since we were talking about those holsters, so for those that doesn't know, Christian, how tall are you and how much do you weigh?
Oh, putting me on the spot. So I'm about 6 foot tall, and I'm around like two. I'm about 280.
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking you that is because Christian, he appendix carry, right? And
Hmm.
I know a lot of people that are pretty big and tall, they always complaining that appendix doesn't work for them because they're too big. And then in my response is, well, check out this guy. I mean, he could draw the gun pretty fast and he's pretty big and he could appendix carry. And I think it's mainly is because I think the reason why a lot of people say that they don't like to appendix carry is because they don't actually have an appendix holster. They just buy a random holster and then try to appendix. I'm guilty of that. That's why I just started to consider appendix carry about 2 years ago. But when I was 21 and all the way till that age, I was just carrying from the 3 o'clock position since I'm right-handed, so my strong side. And I never realized how easy it is to appendix carry. So that's why I want to ask your height and your weight so that people know that you could be any size and still be able to appendix carry. Yeah.
Yeah, I can go on road trips, and then I'll sit in a car for like 4 to 6 hours, uh, carrying a Glock 19 and an appendix. Is it the most comfortable? I mean, it's not the absolute most comfortable, but I can definitely do it, right, with no issues, right? If I know I'm going to go on a large car, I know I'm going to go on a longer car trip, then I'll probably wear something smaller, like a P365. But yeah, I can wear a Glock 19 for about 6 hours, and I'll be good.
I actually fell asleep with a Glock 19 and a Filster Pro once for like 6 hours.
I
Mm.
can't do that.
So yeah, man. Like back to the question when I was asking, ex does expensive always mean better? Because the reason why I think this question is important because I noticed that when people are new to concealment, they go on Amazon and they will buy the cheapest holster because they feel like, why would I want to spend 60 plus dollar on a piece of plastic? So in your guys' opinion, I know that Filster, T-Rex, and Tier 1, their holster are pretty expensive. In your guys' opinion, do you guys think expensive always mean better?
Yeah, I guess I'll start off on this one if Tanner doesn't mind. But
Yeah.
answer is I would say it depends, right? It depends. When it comes down to it, a lot of times you get what you pay for, maybe not all the time. One of the big problems that people have is that usually the companies that are spending the most advertising dollars, a lot of times they kind of have the most mediocre subpar products. Okay. That's why I always see people come to class with we the people holsters, and they're really not great, right? I don't really see filter advertising as much, but if you go to classes, you talk to instructors who actually know what they're talking about, this is usually one of the top brands that they recommend. um, so I would say that it's tough. It's tough because even if you look at like the YouTube landscape, right, which is a lot where a lot of people get their information, right, whether you're watching like Grand Thumb or things like that. Like I said, there's a lot of those advertisements are kind of like the most mediocre products, whether it's like We the People or USCCA or Sonoran Desert Institute for Gunsmithing. They're not things that I recommend. Okay, so one of the things that's really important to me is that I have pretty okay social media following. I don't take products or I don't take endorsements from other companies because I've got a lot of different businesses that I run. So that's one of the things I like about T Rex Arms is that they just have their products and then they just push the stuff that they like, and that's what I like, right? I have my own products, I have my own businesses, and so I just push the things that I like, and I don't need advertising dollars. And so, what I would say is that does more expensive equal more better? Depends. Um, your best bet is to is to talk with subject matter experts. All right. If you start getting into communities, that's what you're going to find, right? Communities, they tend to optimize themselves, right? So if you get to more enthusiast communities, where whether that's like people who are more into higher level training or competition shootings, things like that, they're going to tell you that, yeah, the community has found that there are certain things that are optimal. Okay, there's certain things that are more optimal, right? And you can get a more bang for your buck. So yeah, does more better? I'm sorry, does more expensive equal more better? Most of the time, not all the time, but if you get into a community or if you talk to respected SMEs, subject matter experts, they can point you towards good products that will help save you money. One of the things I know we're all guilty of is just having buckets and buckets of holsters, right? Just all the different holsters that we have collected over years. I mean, this is only like a small portion of the holsters that I've got. But yeah, you just end up going through buckets and buckets of holsters. And so I finally settled on the one that I really liked. And then this is the one that I've just been running for. This is the Gen 2. I also have the Gen 1, which I was running for years. And then I'm going to plan probably run this one for more years to come.
Tanner?
Um, I would agree with Christian. I think honestly, a lot of the answers that we're probably going to give out aren't going to be one way or the other. They're always
Yeah.
probably going to fall down the line of it depends. And the reason why I say that is because there are, yes, the expensive holsters tend to be the better ones. That's because a lot of R&D goes into it, a lot of T&E goes into it, right? So these guys are researching and developing, they are testing and evaluating, and there's money that goes into that. And at the end of the day, these are companies, they need to make a living as well, just like we all do. But if you're putting all that money into that kind of stuff, then you're probably going to get a pretty good product. Um, however, right, however, there are some hidden gems out there that you might run into. The places where I found hidden gems were the simple upgrades that you can do. And the biggest upgrade that I found has been a wedge, right? Like as Christian said, they're super cheap. I've used a yoga block and I got a big block from Walmart. It was like $8, and I can probably use that thing for life. I can just cut out a piece that I like. I can shape it in a way that I like, and that was a lifetime investment. So if I ever need a wedge, I can simply just cut out a piece of foam and put that on, and that's, like I said, pretty cheap. So I think to answer the question, I would agree with Christian. It just depends.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Christian said also. Anything else you guys want to add on to it?
Get
Yeah.
involved. Oh, go ahead, Tanner.
I just want to say too that a lot of the good companies that kind of get expensive, they also do offer cheaper options, right? And I think some of the cost comes into like a clip upgrade or a mod wing or claw upgrade, or do you want to add a wedge to it? That's going to cost some extra money. So if you can get by, like if you're like, no, I don't really want to spend extra money on this or that, and you can get pretty cheap. But if you do want all those upgrades and for a good reason, then it might cost a little bit more. So if you're holster shopping, just consider that as well.
What do you guys prefer, leather holster or Kydex? And for those people who don't know what Kydex is, can one of you two explain what Kydex is?
Yeah, so Kydex is it's kind of a, I don't know if this is the 100% correct term, but it's a thermoplastic, right? Essentially, it's a plastic sheet where I've got one right here. Essentially, it's a plastic sheet, right? What you do is you just heat this up, whether it's with a heat gun or a small oven or like a t-shirt press kind of thing, and then it will become soft like leather, right? And then you can actually form it over the gun or over a mold. Most professional companies will use a mold, but for home holster makers like me, we just use the gun, okay? And then you can form it to the shape of the holster. Now, uh, really quick, one of the things that I like T-Rex arms, their holsters, one of the problems they have is that Kydex doesn't actually flex well, okay? Because you can flex Kydex just a little bit, but over time, Kydex will snap the more you flex on it, okay? So if we look at like the filster design, If you guys take a look at the way T-Rex arms, they have their wing set up. They actually have their wing set up on a very tiny little strip, and then it forces all that flex onto a very tiny little area. Compared to the Filster design, the Filster design's actually got a lot of meat right here. Okay, so that as you wear this and as you press down on this, there's that force. And the other thing, I don't even know if this is Kydex. I think this is just injection molded, which is another thing Filster moved to. Um, but the T-Rex arms one, they concentrate all that force on that wing on a very small little area, and then they don't always, but there's a higher number of those wings breaking right there, which is why T-Rex arms, they make good stuff, but their holsters, I think that's one flaw that they have yet to address at the moment, or at least the last time I checked. I don't know if they've updated their holsters, but for the concealment stuff, that's one of the things that I tend to tell people to avoid for their concealment holsters. But yeah, that essentially that's what Kydex is, and you can make knife holsters, flashlight holsters, anything that you want. You can. This headset right here broke, and it's actually repaired with a piece of Kydex. So there's a lot of things you can do with it.
So would you recommend leather holster or Kydex?
Tanner, what are your thoughts?
I think it depends. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we're going to say that a lot. And the reason why is because there are some pretty crappy leather holsters that people are going to be attracted to because for one, they're cheap, and for two, they're comfortable. It's leather. Um, However, it can become unsafe because it is a soft material, and we do want a level of protection on the gun, especially the trigger area. We don't want anything to get in the trigger and cause an ND, which is why most companies refer to Kydex, Voltron, or plastic molded injection or whatever. Um, However, there are some great leather options out there. I don't run leather, so I'm not too keen on those. But I do know they're pretty spendy, but they've been proven to be pretty reliable as far as that goes. I know leather is pretty popular in the outside the waistband category, but as far as inside the waistband, I think it really just depends on the manufacturer and how you're going to carry it, I guess.
Yeah, so like for me, when I first started, I don't. I mean, if people ask for my opinion, I would never recommend leather holster unless it's like outside the waistband. The reason why I don't recommend inside the waistband leather holster is because leather holster tends to get worn out in the long run, and also for example, right, Kydex doesn't really get worn out. So for example, if you were to use a leather holster inside the waistband, when you draw your gun, the belt and your body tends to like squeeze the leather holster together, and it's kind of hard to holster your gun. So that's why, my opinion, I tend to stay away from leather holster inside the waistband because of that reason. So I just stick with Kydex. Yeah.
I mean,
Reason number one. Oh, go ahead,
I
Tanner.
want to say sorry, but I will say Kydex isn't like indestructible either. I think all holsters are kind of like consumable item. It's just the lifespan of them, right? Like which one's going to last longer, which
Mm.
one's going to withstand force a little bit better, right? Which is again, I think Filter has it nailed down, Tenacore has it nailed down. Like Chris said, T Rex is kind of iffy, but that's just a thing to consider as well. That if you get a holster and you're like, cool, I'm good, I'm like done, and then you find out that it breaks, a lot of people like to complain, like, oh, this is a crappy holster, whatever, whatever. But you have to understand that it is a consumable item. They do wear, they do break. It's not, it's a man-made product. It's going to fail sometimes, but it's the question of when, you know, not necessarily how.
Damn it, you guys are breaking my heart, man. I'm a T-Rex fanboy here, man.
I I go on and off. Lucas Botkin is definitely a polarizing figure within the gun communities. I have periods where like, man, this guy's pretty cool, and then I have periods I'm like, this guy's kind of annoying. Um, but overall, I think they seem to be pretty good about standing behind their products. If you guys there was a time when they're making plate carriers and stuff, and so they found out that, well, they wanted to make it all American. They found out that one of the suppliers was, hey, they're not doing it in the US, and they were subcontracting it out, and so they refunded those people, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I think that they have some pretty good business practices, right? um but I don't know. That's just one of my little nitpicks. That's such an easy fix. I'm sure they're going to do a revision of it, but it seems to come up infrequently, but it does happen because, like I said, Kydex. I've been working with Kydex for years. Like I said, I make the weirdest things out of Kydex, like small repairs and my own little holsters and stuff. And you can't flex it. Okay, if you flex it back and forth enough times, it's going to snap. It's not like regular plastic. That's just one of the problems with Kydex. Going back to the leather holster thing, really one of the only reasons to carry leather is that it looks cool. Okay, you just can't deny that there's something really classic about leather. I would not necessarily wear it for something performance related unless you are doing some like cowboy action shooting. I wouldn't rely on my life for with using leather. One of the main things being is that I've got a leather holster around here somewhere in an old one. But essentially, what's going to happen is that they start to deform, especially if you're talking about an inside the waistband holster or even outside the waistband. What happens is it'll get soft over time because that body heat and that sweat, it'll cause it to expand and stretch. And there's many documented instances of not this single action revolver, but just, I'll just use this as this is an example. Okay, this is not 100% accurate to what I'm talking about, but essentially, for a handgun, this little part right here can start to crease on a leather holster. And there are documented examples where that crease forms, right? And it will, as you holster, set off that trigger. Okay. So, like I said, not this particular example, but similar to this. And so that's why we typically don't recommend leather for self-defense or everyday carry. But if you want something that looks really cool, I mean, you absolutely cannot beat leather for something that looks really cool. That's what it's good for.
Tanner, you were gonna say something?
No, oh, actually, yeah. So this kind of goes on to the previous question of like what makes a good holster. And since we're like on the topic of the designs and wings cracking and all that kind of such, some holster companies, they don't pay attention to the I don't know what to call it, but I guess there's like a grain. If you're familiar with meat and you cut against the grain or whatever, or with the grain, right? There's different types of things like that. And Kydex is kind of the same way. Kydex has grains in it, and essentially it can go sideways or it can go north, south, up and down. And I've seen some companies where they actually lay the Kydex with it going north to south, and that's where the breaking point usually is, especially where there's high pressure, because that grain, right? But if you have it going against the grain, it's a little bit better for leverage. So yeah.
As many Kydex pieces as I've broken, I know what you're talking about, but I have never paid attention to that. Dang. I've never paid attention to that.
I'm learning, dude. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, I had to learn all this stuff
Same.
too, man.
Same.
All right, let's move on to the next question. We sort of kind of answered this question already, but maybe you guys could talk more about it too. So the question is, what are things you regret and things you wish you knew sooner before you started to conceal carry?
You want to go first, Tanner?
Sure. So I got into concealed carry very luckily. I grew up with a father in he's a police officer, so he always carried it. I always my dad's a superhero, so I always wanted to be him. And whenever he carried a gun, I felt protected, and that's kind of what I wanted to do as well. So with me being in the military, prior service military, and being stationed in Florida when I turned 18 or when I was 18. There's a law down there that actually allows people active duty to flip a concealed carry when under 21. Most states it's 21, but you can get it in the state of Florida if you're military under 21. So I got my concealed carry at either 18 or 19. Just a freaking teenager, naive, fresh out of the house teenager, not knowing jack. My first holster was a nylon holster from the gun store. The gun store guy was like, "Yeah, man, you can throw any gun in here. It's super comfortable, whatever." And I was like, "Heck yeah, I'll roll with it." You're talking about you work at a gun store. No, completely wrong. That thing sucked. But
really quick.
What's up?
Tanner's absolutely correct. That's like, unfortunately, one of the worst places to get advice about firearms is the gun store, sadly enough.
Yeah, but like I'm just like a regular dude, and that's what's gonna happen to anybody who's getting into this. That's exactly what's gonna happen. They're gonna recommend stuff to get them money. May not be the best, but they're trying to get money. Anyways, so I kind of really like, man, this sucks. Like, is this really how it's like to carry a gun? Like, I don't really carry a gun anymore. but like I said, at the time I was really young and I was super into social media. And I started following guys like T Rex Arms, Tier 1 Concealed, because I saw how fast and how good people can actually be with a concealed firearm.
Mm.
And that was what introduced me to kind of take things serious. And then I used to look at all my old friends' posts and all that kind of stuff, and they were just blasting shotguns in their farms, whatever, like just not being super professional. And I didn't want that image. I didn't want to be a part of that crowd. I wanted to be kind of professional and
Mm.
be like, hey, we can do this stuff professionally, safely, and like really good. So that's what got me introduced to the more social media side of things, and then from there, I got into the communities like Christian mentioned earlier, and that's where I learned a lot of this stuff. I met a ton of people, tons of friends, tons of instructors who were just schooling me on stuff, and I used to argue back because I was super ignorant on this stuff, and I used to be like, "Nah, man, like that's you just trying to make me spend money, or you're just sponsored by them, or I'm not believing you, whatever." Um, if I could change one thing, or if I regret one thing, it's just being super closed-minded, not considering like, hey, these guys probably done this for a while, so I should probably listen to their word. Um, and now we have social media at like our fingertips where we can join. There's like Facebook groups for anything.
Mm.
Um, and so there's tons of Facebook groups out there. So if you can join that, or if I would have joined one of those when I was getting into this, I think I would have been way better off. Um, and I would have saved a crap ton of money.
Tanner, I did a short little video to my social media where I explained that these are actually cartridges and not bullets. I got a couple million views on it, and I only got 3 death threats from people who are very upset about me telling them that. Yeah. Another thing about your that reminded me of a story of your going to a gun store. So my grandmother, this is back when I was a little kid. So my grandmother, so she needed a gun for self protection, right? So she goes to the gun store, and then I didn't hear the story until much later, but they sell her this. All right. If you guys don't know what this is a North American Arms mini Magnum, right? Number one, she barely speaks English. I don't know how like legitimately they got her to fill out a 4473 form to clear her background check and stuff. That's for those of you guys don't know, you have to fill out a form that says, I'm not a criminal, and then I'm not a person who can't buy a gun. But I don't know. Somehow they helped her fill that out, which they're not supposed to, right? And then the other thing is, if you guys don't know how to reload this thing, it's ridiculous, right? Because this is not like a normal revolver. You've got to pop this pin out in the front, and then you've got to go to half cock on the cylinder, and then you've got to load up your cylinder externally, and then you've got to slot the cylinder in just perfectly, go to half cock, line up that notch, and you've got to go to the front, stick your hand in front of the barrel, which is always the best, slide that in, and this is a single action revolver. So yeah, they sold this to my grandma, right? And I'm looking at it now, right? She's long past, and I'm like, gun stores are like unfortunately like the worst place to get advice on firearms because they're gonna sell you stuff like this, which really fun gun, really neat to have. Absolutely the wrong firearm for an elderly lady trying to defend herself.
What is that gun called?
This is the North American Arms. This is their
Oh
mini
no,
Magnum.
okay.
This is an older one. They still make these because these things are tiny. These things are tiny. They actually they make a belt buckle, so you can wear this on a belt buckle if you feel so inclined.
You should do a speed shooting video with that gun and reload with it.
Yeah, do a Facebook.
Yeah, man, for me, one thing that I regret the most when I first got into concealed carry is being too gullible with Amazon reviews, man. Those are the worst reviews ever, man. They will 5-star everything, holsters or lights and everything. So that is one of my biggest regret because I wasted so much money buying trash when I could have just spent that money on quality things. So that's one of my biggest regret. And not training sooner because I feel like if you train sooner, you will you will be able to know the difference between quality and trash. And I was those type of people that did not train when I first got into concealed carry, so I had nothing but trash. So that's one of my biggest regret when I got into concealed carry. I wasted money.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's always a crapshoot whenever one of my friends comes up to me. It's like, hey, I bought this gun. I'm like, okay, it's a 50-50 chance that it's going to be something good or it's going to be something you wasted your money on. And yeah, you're right. Getting involved in communities that actually know what they're talking about. Uh, if you join a competition type of group, that's when people are more performance based, and every millisecond counts in a competition. Those are type win or lose type of scenarios, and so those people, they're constantly vetting. What are better techniques, what is better equipment, right? And so that kind of filters down into a lot of those guys in like what they EDC, the everyday carry, their concealed carry equipment, that they're also looking for better equipment. They're also looking for things that they're more vetted. That's definitely true. Um, Take like flashlights for example. Hot take: O lights are not as good as the fans think there are, but they're not as bad as the haters think they are, I would say. O lights are not going to be as good as, say, like a mod light, right? They're not going to cost as much as a mod light. Mod lights run in like the $250, $300 range for a flashlight. I had to explain to my wife, I lost a $300 flashlight. She's like, number one, you had a $300 flashlight. Number two, how did you lose it? Okay. So this is one of my mod lights that I got as a replacement. Um, yeah, you definitely had to waste your money. Even somebody like Carl of Tactical Rifleman, he is former I think he's former Delta, former Rangers. He's up there like Special Forces or something. I mean, he's a he's a paid advertiser for Olights, and that's pretty cringe because, like I said, they're they're not well regarded by people who are really deep into like performance and higher quality equipment. But I will also say that they're not as bad as everybody paints it out to be. Would I get them? I used to buy them, but not anymore. I think you definitely get better things for the price, especially like Streamlight. I'd much rather get Streamlight products.
I've
So
lost
ten.
two of these things. My
I
wife.
I got lucky. I got lucky. My son found my other mod light. It was actually in the couch cushion. My son found it. I'm like, yes, now I have two of them.
That's what I was hoping that would happen to me. I'd buy a new one and then I'd find the other one, but I never found them. So, but whatever. What's up, Q?
Oh yeah, so I was gonna ask you this question. So we were you two were talking about community, and I know that you and I are in this group on Facebook, and I'll let you talk more about it since you're more active on that group. Um, what group would you recommend people to join on Facebook if they're trying to find a community that is serious about training and getting better at shooting?
All right. So there's a ton, and it's kind of hard to figure out what's good and what's not good. But I'll start off with the two that I enjoy the most. The filter concealment workshop, by far, like I see the posts and people post like, "Hey, I'm using my filter Enigma. This is how I conceal it. This is the outfit I'm wearing," and it's like bizarre. Like I would never imagine seeing people carry that way. Um, I see there's people in that group who also post shooting as well. So if you want to see those products like on demand and pressure tested, like Chris mentioned earlier, Rhett Newmeyer, that dude is a freaking wizard. I don't know how he does it, but he literally was like, "All right, cool. So you guys are always questioning me about how do I get my gun, and it's below my belt line." And he did a sub-second draw, like super easy. So like just seeing stuff like that, it's like, oh, okay, so these guys are legit. They're posting stuff. They're backing up their claims, and that's a good place to learn. The group that you mentioned is actually called Deliberate Training Group. I think it's like V2. Um, and at first, it started out kind of shaky, but I think there's a good admin team in that
Hmm.
group. They're all vetted instructors, or have some sort of things to back up what they say. And there's rules that are set in place too in that group as well that kind of make if people want to add like context to something or they want to answer a question, they kind of have to back it up. They kind of there's a way
Mm-hmm.
that they can tell that they know what they're talking about. And then if people don't do that, if people are really ignorant and they just come in there just to lay their ego down, they're absolutely amazing at cutting that crap out.
Mm.
Um, and those are the two groups that I've mainly stuck with. I've joined T-Rex Arms groups, Grand Thumb Lover Page, all these other super cringe ones, and it's just full of people who don't take it as serious, right? They just want to go to the range, wear the kit, look cool, post it on the social media, and be done. Or they do it for memes or whatever. And just being in the, I guess, industry or the realm of firearms, it just gets kind of sickening, and you just get burnt out from that. Um, so those are the two that I'd probably recommend that I'd gravitate towards if you want to take this serious. Those other groups, they're fun, but I find myself wasting a ton of time, just in there interacting, which is why I spend most of my time in the other groups now.
And I'm glad that you brought that up too, is because a lot of not just concealment, but guns in general. When people get into guns for the first time, they don't know the difference between gun people and shooters. So if you are new to firearms and you're trying to get better, make sure you join shooters community, not gun community. All right, because gun people are just like, hey, look at my new gun. This gun is cool, but they never talk about shooting. So if you try and get better, know the difference between shooters and gun people, and make sure you join shooters group, not gun group. I mean, you could join
If
both, but if you try and get better, know the
if that
difference.
if that group has nation in the name, avoid it.
Um, yeah. Anything else?
No,
Uh,
I think you guys made some pretty excellent points. Yeah, especially when it comes down to trying to find a more serious community. There's the whole range of shooting community is it's wild. Okay, I'm I I try to stay away from the more like really popular ones where people like mostly post like funny stuff. Um, one of the ones that I like is there's a group called How to Tell Us You Don't Train, and those guys they tend to be a little bit more serious um, about good training techniques, and then we'll post bad instructors there, and then guys will argue about this technique is better or this technique doesn't really work, and then there's a lot of high level professionals in there, right? And there's a lot of silly stuff, funny stuff. There's also a lot of high level professionals in there. So the How to Tell Us You Don't Train group in Facebook, that's a good one. And then some of you guys are too young, and Facebook is way too old, right?
yeah.
So sources on YouTube, right? YouTube seems to transcend generations a little bit better for you Gen Z. Um, Depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for competition stuff, if you really want to push that performance, Ben Steger, it's pronounced Steger, but that's spelled Stoeger. So Ben Steger, he's got an excellent YouTube channel. He just posted about a 3-hour video of his full class. Right, there's a lot of instructors who, if you want to learn from my stuff, you got to come to my class and you got to pay me $300 to $1,000 for how many days the class is, right? But Ben Sager's like, nah, I'm just gonna record the whole thing, and this is the whole class up on YouTube. And Ben Sager, he's one of the most well respected instructors out there. Dude's flying to like the Middle East to train other people. He's going to be going to Germany in a couple weeks. I think I heard. Um, yeah, so if you want to learn performance shooting, that's one of the best places to start because he believes that this information it's not special, and so he's a little abrasive, but his technique is very good. His he's got so many videos on like the same topic, and so you can learn that same topic, and he'll come at it from different perspectives, which I think is great. And there's just tons and tons of stuff on his channel. Another one that I found is Hunter Constantine. Hunter Constantine, he's got some pretty good videos too. So Ben Steger, he's a multiple national, he might be international champion, but he's grandmaster level. Hunter Constantine is another grandmaster level shooter. I really like Hunter Constantine stuff. I was really into Humble Marksman for a while, but Humble Marksman, I think one of the things that Humble Marksman he's kind of found is that people like product videos more than they like shooting videos, which is the unfortunate case. His product videos they're good, but I mean, he's kind of been reviewing every single 6-hour product out there because he's getting invited to all the 6-hour events. So I'm getting a little bit turned off by that because for me personally, I don't really care about products. I really care more about performance shooting. Even though Humble Marksman, he's a master level shooter. So those are some of the things that I look for. People who teach more shooting rather than like review products. If you really want to get into like the tactical stuff, I would say my favorite would be Brass Facts and Hop. If you really want to learn about like night vision and suppressors and um, the more, how should I say it, the more optimized builds for rifles, I think they are the most. They're very well thought out. They're very realistic in their approach, and they're not very high level shooters, but they are starting to get in competition, so they're starting to push that. But I think they have a very grounded approach. So I really like Hop and Brass Facts. I think those are guys that I definitely recommend if you want to get into more of the civilian tactical stuff.
Mm. Oh snap! What happened to Tanner? Yeah,
Uh,
let's
uh,
wait till he hop back in. But yeah, man. Yeah, dude. I'm glad that you mentioned about YouTube stuff because um one person that when I first got into like shooting, right? One channel that I watched a lot was I think they pronounce it Such 00.
yes. Oh
I
man.
I was
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
I took everything he said to heart because I didn't know any better. I mean, not hating on him. I'm glad that he's reviewing guns and all that stuff, but like I didn't know the difference between gun people and skilled people. So that's just one thing that I want the newer people to understand is that if you're new to shooting and you want to get better at shooting, just know the difference. There's nothing wrong with being a gun guy. There's nothing wrong with just strictly about shooting. But if you want to get better, yeah, yeah, just know the difference.
Did you guys grow up on Nothing Fancy, or is that just me?
I his videos are too long, but I will give him credit that he does dive deep into it, even though in my opinion he's not a good shooter, but he does dive deep into like the firearms. So he's more of a gun guy than more of a like a skilled shooter. Yeah.
That's what we had back in the day. We had
Yep.
Nothing Fancy. We had Paul Harrell. We had who's there was another guy. He would shoot random fruits and
Hickok
vegetables.
45.
You had Hickok 45. You had Dugan Ashley. Oh, that's what we had back in the day.
All right. So, for the next question, this is a very good question, in my opinion. Um, is a micro subcompact pistol always ideal for concealed carry? Tanner, you could start. You've been kind of quiet.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Mhm.
All right. Is a micro subcompact always ideal? And I think the biggest part of that question is the always.
Hmm.
In my experience, I found that there's never a absolute in guns or anything really in general. Is it ideal? Well, it really depends, right? What is your ideal? What are you
Mm.
doing? Where are you going? Um, Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, there are some things that we have to consider about these types of guns that they are extremely small. And when you like, if you look at competition shooters, right, because they shoot for sport, are they shooting micro subcompacts? Absolutely not. Or at least they're not shooting it to be competitive.
Hmm.
They might be shooting it, just to be like, hey, I want to see how I perform with it. It's my carry gun, whatever, whatever. But it's absolutely not the easiest thing to shoot in the world. Um, is it easy to conceal? 100%. The things are tiny, the size of our pockets. But is that always the most ideal thing to carry? Well, can you shoot it good? Is the recoil going to be too harsh for you? Because they are smaller guns, so it's less mass, so the guns are going to be a little bit more snappy. Um, so I think honestly, it just comes down to what are you doing. Um, so always ideal? I don't think so. I would say no.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with you, and the reason why I have this question for us to answer is because, um, when people that doesn't really understand shooting, when they go to this gun store, they're gonna ask like the gun people, the employee, like, hey, which gun should I carry? And I noticed that a lot of gun stores they always recommend the small guns like the P365 or the Hellcat. Like, hey, this is easy carry and conceal. But then the gun store people they never consider if like, hey, can you actually shoot? you know. So that's why I thought that this is a good question. In my opinion, um, I feel like a bigger gun is actually easier to conceal than a smaller gun, just because the barrel is longer. Especially if you're trying to appendix carry. Because the longer the barrel, it the longer barrel it helps push uh into your body compared to like a subcompact, which the barrel is kind of short. And when you're, let's see, so pretend that this is a gun, right? If the barrel's so short, your stomach or your body is like pushing the gun this way. So I feel like when I try to carry my Hellcat, it prints more than my Glock 19 or Glock 17. Do you guys experience that?
100%.
Okay.
That's uh that's one of the principles that Filster talks about. If you guys watch Filster videos, they'll talk about the keel principle. The keel, like a boat, Keel. Um, so for if you guys have ever seen like a sailboat, like a full diagram of it, a lot of the sailboats will have this long piece underneath the hull of the sailboat, and that's the keel, and that helps the boat to stay upright, right? So that's actually a very interesting thing. Where take for example this Glock 19, it's smaller than say like this Glock 34, right? And so you actually got a good point there where the Glock 34 actually can carry a little bit better because of the keel principle, where the Glock 34, since it sits lower, right, of the belt line, it'll actually help stabilize the gun better when you're carrying it, right? So it's one of the reasons I like the Filster Floodlight is that I can carry any number of guns I want in this. This is definitely a product that I recommend. Um, Getting back to what you're talking about, is number one, we should probably define, what is that a micro subcompact. So in the history of concealed carry and fires and stuff, right? So you've got a duty handgun. This is a Glock 17. This is a legitimate duty gun because this is actually a used police firearm, right? It's currently coated in chalk because I'm doing 3D scanning stuff with it right now. And so we started going towards guns that were a little bit smaller, a little bit better for concealed carry. This is a Glock 19. So with this Glock 19, this is going to be a little bit smaller, shorter barrel. It's kind of negated because I'm running a longer light on it, but a little bit better for concealed carry. I like a Glock 19 because I feel like this is a great balance of concealability versus having pretty good performance. I've won a couple challenge points with this gun. I can do sub 2 second build drills, sub-second draws with this. And then we started getting into market into oh, Tanner, you're talking about you don't see guys shooting performance with the smaller guns, but then there's that one guy on YouTube. Yes,
He's an exception.
Grandmaster.
He's an exception.
The one exception. He's insane. He reached Grandmaster with a Glock 26, which is the small gun. Nobody does that because that's like trying to win a race by cutting off your right foot. But he can do it. Okay. We started getting into these. These are the smaller single stack guns. This is a Ruger EC9S. This holds 7 rounds in the magazine, and it's very small, very thin profile. So these were extremely popular for a while. And then 6 Hour, they kind of came and they revolutionized the market where they came out with these guns, the P365, which is about the same profile, right? The same profile, just like a hair thicker. But whereas this one only holds 7 rounds, this one can hold, wrong one, sorry. The Ruger only holds 7 rounds. This one will hold 10, or you can get a magazine that's slightly longer and it'll now hold 12. They make like 17, 21 round magazines for it. If we're trying to conceal carry, you probably want a smaller magazine. Is it always the best? Depends. It's definitely not the most highest performing gun. When we have to kind of establish what are we talking about when we say like a high performing gun, right? Something that's more optimized for competition, like a Glock 34, right? It's going to be longer. Is going to do a couple things. The guns tend to have more mass. They tend to be heavier, and so what that's going to do is that's going to allow it to soak up more recoil, right? The more mass of the gun, the heavier it is. Those shots are going to. It's going to be easier to make more shots faster and more accurately. That's why we like bigger, heavier guns for competition. That's kind of the opposite of what we want for concealed carry. You don't really want something big and heavy. So the reason that I don't everyday carry P365 is that since it has less mass, it's harder to shoot quickly and accurately as well as a gun that's going to be a little bit larger. Okay, that's why I like the Glock 19. In my opinion, that's my personal sweet spot. Some guys they like the larger guns. Glock 19 is my sweet spot gun where I can do most everything with it. Um, now, so what I would say about especially like these particular series of guns is that they're pretty good guns. One of the issues I don't like about 6 Hour is that I always find like their finishes are not as great. Like this one's starting to get a little bit rusty, whereas like Glock 19, I've carried this for years and years, and it's not rusty at all. I love the finish that Glock does with their guns. So I think they're great. I think that they definitely revolutionized the market when they came out. I think they're all around a great place to start. Typically, what I tell people that if you are getting into concealed carry, if you're starting to carry a gun, start with something smaller. Okay, this is typically actually what I still recommend for most people. Okay, Ruger EC9. We've got I have like four of these now. Okay, about four of these now, and we use them as rentals in our classes because they run well. Right, surprisingly for a gun. I picked these up for about $200. You can find them around like the 250-ish range. For a gun that inexpensive, Ruger makes a pretty reliable handgun, and we've run hundreds of rounds through these in the rain, in the snow, with minimal, if no cleaning at all. They're for a sub $300 gun. This is, in my opinion, probably one of the best to get. Now, why do I recommend this as like a first time gun? Number one is that the gun should be comfortable. Okay, gun should be comfortable to carry because if you're not going to carry it, it cannot help you. There's only one gun that matters, and the one gun that matters is the one that you have immediate access to. So a lot of times, people will end up getting something that they got this PSA dagger on sale, right? And then they start finding out, hey, this PSA dagger, I have a hard time conceal carrying it. It's not that most comfortable for me because I probably haven't learned how to conceal carry comfortably and effectively yet, and so they just don't end up carrying it, right? So typically for most newer shooters, I recommend getting something smaller, easier to carry. And then it's not that expensive of an investment too. So that way, in the future, you start learning that, hey, I want a little bit more performance out of the gun. I want to be able to, I want to be able to shoot a little better, maybe attend some training classes with it. Then you didn't spend a ton of money on that gun, and you can start moving up to a Glock or something else where you can start accessorizing a little bit more optics, lights, and things like that. So that's kind of my approach to it. Is that the only gun that matters is the one that you have immediate access to. So I always recommend to my students, get something that's comfortable and easy to carry. That's always a good place to start. And then as you start learning and as you start pushing that skill level, you start realizing there are certain things that I want and there are certain things that I don't necessarily need. But yeah, that's those are some of my thoughts.
Damn. So for me, I'm actually the opposite of what you're saying. So like, no, 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 I agree with everything you said, but I have a different approach with your first gun. I feel like your first gun should be, whether you're big or small, I feel like your first gun should be like a compact size, like the Glock 19. The reason why I say that is because I feel like the bigger the gun, the easier it is to learn the fundamental. And then once you're comfortable learning once you're comfortable with your shooting skills, you could buy a smaller gun for concealed carry. Because I feel like, because I know I have a few family members that they buy small handguns right away, and they have such a hard time learning the fundamental, and it creates bad habit, is because the small handgun is just so hard to shoot. So that's why, in my opinion, I feel like people should start with like a gun like a Glock 19 to learn the fundamental first, and then move on to a smaller gun if they want to carry a smaller gun. So, but that's just my opinion.
What are your thoughts, Tanner?
Um, no, I used to kind of agree with Koo, but after hearing what you had to say, it's kind of making me kind of more down the middle now. Uh, so, I'm kind of still undecided. I'll honestly say that, but I do want to mention we have to be careful when it comes to purchasing, especially like a first handgun, because we have to be careful of the marketing. A lot of these companies will market, oh, here's our SIG P365 Rose Edition. It has rose gold on it. Here's perfect for ladies, but is it really perfect for ladies? We don't know. It's kind of up to the shooter. Hell, back to the gun store story. These Smith and Wesson J frames or any J frame revolver, these are always going to be recommended. They're like, it's super reliable. It's always going to go bang. It's super small, easy to carry. But dude, shooting this thing absolutely sucks. So it's like you just got to be careful. Yeah, go to the stores, feel the guns, take everything they say to you with a grain of salt. But yeah, as far as the conversation goes, I'm a little undecided. So I'm gonna stay neutral on that one for now.
Okay.
Both great points.
Here's an interesting thought to pair along with that, Tanner. I forgot who's been saying this, but there's some instructors that have been saying that the feel of the gun in your hand doesn't matter. And I had to really consider that, right? Because a lot of people, they say, I want to go to the gun store. I want to feel the gun. Does it feel comfortable in my hand? And so a lot of instructors are saying that the feel in your hand doesn't matter. Okay. What matters is how well do you know how to grip a gun? And I started thinking about that. Like, yeah, you know what? Actually, you're right. Because, if I were to pick up like a Glock, right? The Glocks, for some people, it may fit. For some people, it may not fit, right? But then ultimately, how it feels, how it's shaped, that's not the most important thing. Because if you have the technical skill, you can definitely make it run. What do you guys think on that?
I would agree. 100%, I would agree.
Yep.
However, my only thing about that is that it takes, like, when we're talking first time buyers,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be something they're going to consider. If they hold a Glock and they're like, oh, it's too blocky for me, or I can't reach the thumb release, or I can't reach the slide release, or this thing it's to rack the slide, it's too hard for me. Those are some things that I think we should consider as well. Like we can't just put a blanket statement and be like, "We'll learn how to shoot." Okay, well, like there's an intro to this thing. And if someone wants to choose an M&P over a Glock, dude, they're both like the same gun. They're both striker fired 9 mil, duty style guns. They're both gonna work, but does it? If one person wants an M&P because the ergo is a little bit better, and ergo is short for ergonomics, so just how the gun is designed and whatever. Absolutely. Hey, if that gets you a gun and gets you shooting, I'm all for that. So if for a first time buyer, feel I would say comes into consideration. Once they start building skill, they can and then start to learn like, hey, I can pick up any gun and shoot it well. At that point, absolutely, I would agree. Anybody can shoot whatever they want. Feel does not matter.
Really quick, I want to go off what Tanner was saying. Right, this is something I'm starting to see. If you guys follow Firepower United, Calvin, I forgot his last name. Yes. So one of the things he's been posting about in this past couple of weeks is that magazine release, right? How people are complaining that they can't hit the magazine release without breaking the grip. That's going to be the case for like 80-90% of people. That's normal, right? But that's something that we don't really think about, right? A lot of people, they do want to find a gun where they can hit that magazine release without breaking their grip. But when it comes down to that, what's going to happen sometimes is that if the magazine release, if it's a little bit too easy to hit, you might accidentally release the magazine unintentionally. So it's actually not a bad thing that you cannot hit the magazine release without breaking that grip. So that's a thought there.
Absolutely. I've seen some people shoot too, some guns that they try out the range, and just the way they grip the gun, sometimes even their support hand would hit that mag release. But I've worked in a gun store for like maybe a year, and I've had a lot of people use that as a factor in buying guns, and I'm like, hey, dude, you know what? If you continue this and you're serious about it, you're gonna learn that it really doesn't matter. But if that's what's gonna help you purchase this gun and get you shooting, tell yourself whatever you got to tell yourself, man. I want you to get a gun. I want you to get trained up and protect yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, really, really quick thing about some of my personal experience. So, as I was getting into firearms, I was like in my 20s. And so, like I said, back then, if you really wanted good gun reviews, you watch Nothing Fancy. And so I got a Sig Pro SP 2022, right? Because it was pretty inexpensive. It was about $300 and it was a Sig Sauer, right? So pretty good brand. Nothing Fancy had a great review on it. And so what I found out from that is that ultimately it may be a pretty good gun, but if it's not a popular gun, it's not supported. Okay. 6-hour magazines are notoriously expensive. Still to this day, they're still crazy expensive. You're not going to have holster support. You're not going to have support for like accessories or parts or anything. Then from there, I went to an M&P, and then, I wanted to do some things to an M&P. I wanted to tune it. And then I'm like, there's like barely any parts in the MP at this time. And then I went to a Springfield XD, and then I was the same thing. Hard to find like decent support for parts and accessories and stuff. And then finally, I got my Glock 19, right? And then once I got my Glock 19, everything in the world just clicked, right? I could find all the parts that I wanted for it. Everybody makes a holster for it. If there's a thing you can do it to a gun, you can do it to a Glock. So typically when somebody asks me, hey, what gun should I get? And I say, well, okay, excellent starter gun. And they say, well, do you want something a little bit more higher performance, I should say? I just say, just get a Glock 19. Glock 19 is the perfect middle ground pistol, in my opinion. It's not the best at anything, but it's very good at most things. So that's why I like the Glock 19. I carry Glock 19. A lot of the guys I know, they're into higher end staccatos and 2011s, things like that. I can definitely afford one. I don't carry one because I don't want my students to see that, oh yeah, you can only do sub 2-second bills because you're carrying a $2,000-$3,000 staccato. So I purposely handicap myself with not even necessarily handicap, but I purposely carry a Glock I picked up used for like $400, just to show my students that, hey, this is still a very stock Glock. You'll notice that triggers. The only thing internally that's different is I run a ghost connector. It's like $20, but everything else is pretty much stock in this gun, except for just the light and the red dot. And then I did blow up the barrel. I had a bad reload and I blew it up. So this is literally just a cheap eBay barrel I got for like $40. That's how I like to run my guns. Something simple, and shows my students that, hey, now the performance doesn't come from the gun. Okay, the performance comes from your ability to train and the mastery of just having good skill.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point too. With the aftermarket support. That's why, like for me, I always recommend Glock just because finding holsters, finding like there's so much aftermarket support for the Glock. So yeah, I
Oh, really
agree.
quick, really quick, really quick, real quick. You watching this video right now, do not overly modify your Glock. Just because I said you can doesn't mean that you should. I'm talking to you right now. Don't get a bunch of red parts or red triggers and stuff for your Glock. You don't need it. Learn to shoot your gun. It works great. I promise you. The only thing that you really need to fix on your Glock is the plastic sights really suck. Those, they can break relatively easily. That most anything else on the gun is not as important. Okay. If you're
You
gonna
forgot one
modify,
thing. You forgot one
mhm,
thing. The MOS plate. Get rid of that. Get CNH. Well, I have good experience with CNH plate for the dot if you plan to put dot on your Glock. Do not use MOS Glock plate, man. That shit is trash, dude.
really quick, what Ku is talking about is this is the MOS model of the Glock. There is a small little adapter plate here. I've got a video on this, but it is tiny. It is about an eighth inch of material, and these screws right here, that means that they're only going into about an eighth inch of material. Um, and the stock, the OEM plates, they kind of suck. So even this one's starting to get a little bit wobbly. So the OEM plates suck. My Glock 19, this is direct milled, which means I sent this off to get it actually cut. So this is actually machine cut. This is not a factory option. If you're going to carry an optic, to trust your life with, then get it direct milled. The MOS is not the best system. It works okay, but it's not the best, most reliable system. Just get it cut. It costs about like $100, but it's worth it in my opinion. But keep your gun close to stock. Okay, if your life depends on it, keep it close to stock.
I agree. Anything you want to say, Tanner?
No, no.
All right. All right. So the next question is, Christian kind of went over this already, but maybe Tanner, you could say some things about this question. Do you think having an extra magazine on you is necessary, and why?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Um, and honestly, it's another one of those. It depends, right? And so for me, my subjective take on it is, it depends what I'm wearing and where I'm going. If I'm wearing, something, if I'm being lazy, I just throw on a gun, call it a day. And I'm going somewhere that's a low threat, right? This is part of my risk assessment before I go out every day. I'm thinking about where am I going, what am I doing, who am I with, um, what's the threat level. If the threat level is high, and I'm considering, hey, I might need a reload, and it's not necessarily because I'm going to get into a wild shootout and I'm going to run out of ammo. I need to reload my gun. But it's, I think too, you mentioned this before when we talked privately, but so a lot of times it's for like just reassurance, maybe after an incident, you can do a attack reload and just top off your gun. Malfunctions, right? Like I said, anything that's man-made is going to fail. So you can have that extra mag for you for that reassurance to, maybe just get rid of that magazine and put a fresh one in. Most of the time, I don't carry a spare magazine unless I'm at work. And I never mentioned it, but I do private security now. So there's, sometimes where we do have to wear concealed stuff, and on that kind of setting and with that risk assessment, I do prioritize the spare mag. But for everyday use, average person, I don't think it's necessary.
Christian,
What are your thoughts, Ku? Oh,
well,
okay, I'll go.
I was gonna say something, but Tanner already said it. So
All right.
yeah, that's pretty much my answer also.
Tanner, you got kicked to the garage. I see your breath. It's pretty cold over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, dude, my heat. I ran out of heat on my propane heater.
Hey man,
Oh, dang.
Minnesota sucks,
Oh,
dude.
thankfully it's not too bad over here in North Carolina. I'm in my basement. It can get kind of chilly, but the weather was like it's like 50 today, so it wasn't too bad. Um, yeah, yeah. So if you're gonna, I think Tanner's got an excellent point there. That for his job, absolutely. If I was doing private security, yeah, I would definitely be carrying spare mag with me because your role's gonna be different, right? I think last time I talked about on our podcast, a really good book I highly recommend is "Violence of the Mind" by Varg Freeborn. But essentially, what he talks about is that be true to your mission, and he even says, that sounds silly, that sounds overly tactical, but he says, yeah, if what is your mission, right? If you are just a regular guy and your mission is to get home to your family every night, then be true to that mission, right? And so the example he gives is that if you're in a gas station and somebody comes up and they pull out a gun and they are robbing the clerk, do you intervene? Do you draw that gun and do you get into a gunfight? And he says if you are truly going to stick to your mission, which is to get home safely at night so you can be a dad to your family, then you wouldn't, right? Because that increases that risk of you getting shot, right? If you get into a gunfight, you are good people. You hate it when evil things happen, right? But what is your mission, and how can you be true to that? And so Tanner makes a good point that yeah, his mission is a little bit different, right? If you're doing private security or you're doing law enforcement, then your mission is going to be a little different, where it might be your job to get involved, right? And in that case, there's more bad things that could happen. For me, I'm a regular guy. I do my best to just dress like a regular guy. Tanner mentioned the gray man concept, right? Some guys they take it the wrong way. They literally just dress in tactical gray. It's not what gray man means. Gray man means that you just blend in, right? You blend in, you just look like a normal dude, right? T-shirt, shorts, flip-flops, right? You look like a normal dude. Some of the best instructors and shooters I know out there, that's how they dress. T-shirt, shorts, flip-flops, right? They're carrying a gun and they can run that gun very well, but you absolutely wouldn't be able to tell. Okay. So just kind of going off of that, the reason I don't carry spare mag is, like I said, I kind of subscribe to the John Korea idea that, of all the civilian self-defense shootings he's seen, only like one, maybe two required a reload. That's another reason that I carry a Glock 19, because the Glock 19, this one holds 15 rounds, whereas something smaller, like this Ruger I keep talking about, this one only holds 7. So, you get a little bit more fighting capacity. You can fight for a little bit longer. Yeah, so I don't think it's necessary, but I think that it's. I mean, there are worse things you could do out there. Magazine's not really going to take up that much space, but absolutely, I highly recommend that people do carry tourniquets. One of the things that you'll find if you take if you take like a good trauma class or classes that teach like stop the bleed kind of stuff, what teach you is that worst case scenario, with massive blood loss, you may have as little as 30 seconds of consciousness left. And so that's why these tourniquets, they're designed to be able to apply to yourself in less than 30 seconds. And so that's one of the fun things we teach in our classes. Well, everybody gets a tourniquet, and we're going to learn how to do it properly, because with a good tourniquet, if it's not hurting, it's not tight enough, and you got to be able to do it in under 30 seconds.
I agree, Ben. I agree.
Yes, tourniquets. I agree as well. There was I seen a video though. I think it was Jimmy Rodriguez. He's a shooter out of Texas. He's really into like long range now, precision type shooting. But he recorded a Modern Samurai Project class, and that's Scott Jedlinski's company. If you guys don't know, he's a pretty known instructor. But anyways, he went over his setup of holsters and why he carries it, and he carries a spare mag. And the question he asked his class in that video was, if you can, why not? And that really got me thinking, and I was like, dang, like, that's true. If you can, why not? So again, it's just that added reassurance. If you guys want to, absolutely. Is if it's going to be something though where you prioritize and you're like, man, like this mag is printing, but I need to carry it, like then you should probably reconsider. Or comfort even is a big thing too. If it's uncomfortable to carry spare mag, maybe reconsider. But yeah, I don't think it's bad either way.
Definitely. This reminded me of something that Tanner mentioned a little bit earlier that I was going to talk about. So some guys, what they do is they say that I'm only going to carry a gun if I think I'm going to need one, right? And this is not to hate on Kue. This is not about you. But some guys, they only carry a gun because they say I'm only going to carry one if I think I'm going to need it, right? And so this is a Tom Givens thing, where, or at least that's where I've heard it. And Tom's like, well, if you think you're going to need a gun, why are you going there? Okay. And that's such a good mindset to have, that you don't get to pick when bad things happen to you, right? So you should have a good level of preparedness for most anything. If I'm going to say, like, I'm going to spend a day and I'm going to be in the city and it's not like the best part of town, sometimes I do feel a little bit better that I'm like, yeah, you know what, I could grab a spare mag, and I do feel better having a spare mag, even though I know statistically I definitely, well, that's not how statistics works. Even though I know statistically I 99% won't need it, there's always that like 0.1% chance where I might, and I feel better with it. Yeah.
And that's huge. I think in concealed carry is confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just carrying the gun itself, it takes a lot of confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to get there, Kue. We're going to get there with you.
All right. All right. So the next question I think is also very underrated and something that people don't think about, especially when they're new. So the question is, do you think the type of belt you wear matters when you conceal carry?
Tanner, what do you think? I've got thoughts on this.
I do. I think it matters, and the reason why is because there's belts out there that are designed to carry heavy loads, designed to carry firearms because firearms are pretty heavy. Um, and then there's belts out there that are made for fashion, or just maybe just an everyday leather belt, right? And a lot of people, like me especially, when I first got into concealed carry, I never considered a belt. I was like, dude, it's a belt, like whatever. So I had like this cheap Target leather belt that's like reversible, whatever. And I tried carrying in that, and it wasn't working. And I didn't think it was the belt. I was like, it's got to be the holster or got to be the gun. Um, but then I started looking into it, and I found out like there's freaking belts made for concealed carry. I mean, you have Core, you have Hunter Constantine has his belt, you have Segura, just to name a few brands. But there's yeah, it definitely matters. So the differences between I guess a load bearing belt and just a regular traditional belt is that they're made more rigid to support the weight of the gun. And when you have that rigidness and support, it actually allows the holster to work as intended to. Because you need that support. You need something that's going to withstand the extra tension from the holster in the gun. It needs to withstand you moving around throughout the day. So when you have a loose belt like that, it doesn't really work as it should. Now we have some options in the market today, especially the Hunter Constantine belt, which is a pretty decent belt from my experience. And it actually has an elastic part on the back, so it stretches. So you're able to get it pretty tight to allow the holster to work. However, it's also very comfortable. Some of these belts out there, there's just too stiff because you do need a little bit of flexibility to form to your body. And like I said, they're just too stiff, so that kind of causes pain. And when that pain happens, no one wants to endure that for a long day, so they're not going to carry it. Um, so there's a balance, right? And there's a balance between just carrying just a 2 inch duty belt and then throwing a gun on there versus a belt that's actually made for concealed carry. The belts that are made for concealed carry tend to be stiff enough and rigid enough to hold the weight of a gun, but also flexible enough to form to your body and be comfortable. So if you guys are, getting into concealed carry, absolutely a belt does matter.
So there's TACCon. TACCon is a conference held by Rangemaster, and so John Hopman of Filster, Tanner, you probably haven't seen this, but Tanner's what he said is belt doesn't matter, and so he demonstrated this by saying that for the past couple of years he's just been wearing like a $10 really crappy belt, right? And so I forgot the details of why he says the belt doesn't matter. Okay, because he was I've got to watch it again. Okay, that's on my to-do list to go back and understand. Going back into the belt topic, I've really got to watch it because I don't remember what he said on why the belt doesn't matter and why John Hopman, one of the founders of Filster, of all places, says the belt doesn't matter. Yeah. I can't remember, but that's one thing for me to look up. But in my own journey of learning firearms and concealed carry stuff, you started out with like that $10 target belt, right? And then you start moving up to better belts. So it's just easier if I just take off my belt. So I started with the Blade Tech belts, right? And then so now I'm wearing like the core belt that Tanner's talking about. Let me just take this one off. So the thing about these belts is that they are stiffer. They're much stiffer than a traditional belt. Traditional belt is, very loose, very floppy. And so the firearm belts, they're nice because with the stiffness of the belt, it holds the gun better. I don't know if that's necessary, but like I said, I need to go review what John Hoffman said. And then you can be too stiff. For example, like a competition belt. This is like a solid ring of plastic. Like there's absolutely no flex on it at all, which is by design because you want your gear to be consistently in the same place. And so you want zero flex in the belt. And so that's not something that you would comfortably wear every day. So if you're getting into it, guys that I respect, they say that the Hunter Constantine belt is better than the Filster Enigma. The Filster Enigma is definitely a great option if you are not a belt person, but you are more like a gym shorts, sweatpants person. Filster Enigma is an excellent option. But like I said, guys I respect say that they like the Hunter Constantine belt better. And I've been meaning to get one. So I'll probably end up buying one sometime soon so I can try it out. But yeah, right now I'm a little bit undecided. I love the core belts. I think the core belts they're like 10% better than the Blade Tech belts that I started with, which they seem like they're exactly the same thing, but the core belt, it does something just a little bit differently, especially with the buckle design. The buckle design just a little bit better than the Blade Tech belts that I use, even though, well, when we're talking about these belts, this is a ratcheting belt. So this means that you can always get the perfect fit, right? Rather than having holes spaced out, this runs on a ratchet. So you get very small micro adjustments with it, right? So you're always getting the perfect fit with this belt. It's very strong. Okay. So that's why I love ratcheting belts. So if I could give a recommendation, I would say core belt is my recommended one because I haven't tried the Hunter Constantine belt, which I've heard is very good. And I need to get one because I enjoy his YouTube content.
So Christian, I have a few questions for you though, because I'm actually genuinely curious about what John has to say too. I might just text him.
So if you know him, yeah, then you got to text him because he said something about that.
He lives like 15 minutes from me, so yeah.
He's up there. I forgot. Yeah, he is.
Sure. But so my first one this sticks out to me like this was like red lights. If like like, so what are your thoughts basically? If you get into an entanglement, do you think a belt would matter then? Like, would you be comfortable carrying like a cheap Target belt, and then you get into a tussle, and like you guys are on the ground, the gun's exposed now, these are happening. What are your thoughts?
I trust John as a subject matter expert. I just don't remember why he said what he said. That is so. If I had to say get a belt, I would say get a core belt because, from my experience, that's the one that I like. I haven't tried them all. There's probably better ones out there, but from my experience, the core is the one I like. I just haven't got a chance to try them all yet. John Hopman, like I said, he is a subject matter expert. He's the one that we all pretty much agree he really knows his stuff. He has excellent holsters, and if he says that he's been wearing a cheapo belt for like past 5 or something years, and then I agree he probably is on to something. I can't remember the full details of what he said. But if you ask him, tell me what he says because
Absolutely.
I'll try to find that video. But yeah, if you can get it straight from him, please absolutely do tell me.
So my next question for you then was, have you experienced yourself of using like cheaper belts not designed for carry of a gun? And if so, like what were the differences that you found, and why did you switch from those cheaper belts?
Oh man, absolutely. So we're all pretty familiar with like Tanner was saying, like those reversible belts, black on one side, blue, black on one side, brown on the other side. So it fits many different occasions. And one of the things you'll find is that they're very floppy. You'll also find that the holes in the belt, right? So the holes where it actually latches and actually sets the length of the belt, those wear out pretty quickly. And so I remember definitely growing up, you'd go through belts every couple of years or so, and they just wear out. Whereas like I've been wearing this core belt for like 3 years now, right? And it's a little bit scuffed, but it's still holding up great. So I think the core belts and the blade tech belts, they're pricey. Um, I think they're around $100, under $100, but it's absolutely worth it in my opinion. The cheaper belts, like I said, they're not meant to carry equipment, and they do wear out fast. This ratcheting mechanism right here, whereas a standard belt, all that stress is going to be put on a hole inside of leather. But for this one, all that stress is going to be put on this plastic ratchet right here. And it's still going strong, right? Even after years and years of wear, this belt is still going strong. So definitely worth it in my opinion.
Great, yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
those core belts are pretty legit. I like them for when I eat a lot of food. I can just like reach down the wrist, loosen it up.
That's the secret. You'll be eating, and then all of a sudden everybody hears like click 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 or ratchet.
So I have a question for both of you. So I know that three of us we appendix carry, right? Do you guys have the belt buckle in front of your pants or at the side?
this
Great
is
question.
something that this is something I tell to my wife, right? I tell her that, one of those things of spotting people who carry a gun. If you see people carrying a gun, I'm sorry. Well, you shouldn't see them carry a gun, but if you see somebody with a belt buckle to the side like this, absolutely they're carrying a gun, and they probably know what they're doing with it. Okay, a lot of the guys that I really respect in the shooting space, that's how they carry it because the clips here, right? If this is the front of your body, right? So let me buckle this real quick. So this is the front of your body right here, right? So your belly button is right up here. Typically, you're going to want to carry your gun right here, and so the actual buckle is going to interfere with these clips. So a lot of the guys that I shoot with, they typically have the buckle off to the side like this, right? So the buckle's not underneath the belly button. The buckle's actually off to like the 11 o'clock position like that. So that's one of the things that I tell people is that, yeah, if you see somebody and you notice that their belt buckle is at the 1 o'clock 11 o'clock position, they're most likely carrying a gun and they probably know what they're doing with it. Oh, another thing that Tanner was talking about. I was going to talk to Tanner about the color of the holster. I do something different in my philosophy with the color of the holster. Um, with the Filster holsters, you've got like black, you got gray, you've got like this coyote tan. I think they do some other colors too. I purposely picked this one, not because it's overly tactical. I wanted something that if I raise my hands up, like I'm grabbing something from top shelf, that what I wanted something that was a little bit more flesh colored. So that way it kind of blended a little bit more in with my skin. Right. And so that's why I picked this color. So
Mm.
Tanner, I think that's actually a really cool thought that you had. If that's there was a video going around where this guy, he's reholstering really quick, and then he just negligently discharges, right? So he catches on something, and then bam, he fires a shot down into his leg. I'll send that to you guys, but that's one of the things I always teach is that when we're reholstering, this is not even my original idea, but when we're reholstering, there's no reason to be in a hurry to reholster, right? Because number one, if we're prepping, right, if we're getting ready to wear our equipment, we're not in a rush. Or if we're shooting in a self-defense type of situation, only reason we should be reholstering is that we're good. Okay, like we're very certain that we're good. Then I can reholster carefully. And so that kind of reduces the chances of us negligently shooting ourselves in the leg or the thigh. So whenever I watch guys like the T-Rex arms guys, those guys holster 100 miles an hour. That always makes me cringe, right? Because they always say that the holster is going to be fine, the holster is going to be clear. I mean, there's always that little 1% chance that something gets in there. So I'm always telling guys to slow down on the holster. Okay, there's no reason to reholster at 100 miles an hour. So Tanner, actually, I think that's an awesome idea that you have of being able to see that holster as you're going back in.
Sure. Thank you. Cool. What was the question again? Sorry.
Do you have the belt
Yeah,
buckle?
I got sidetracked.
Yeah,
Oh.
in front of your pants.
Yes, I do. And I've experimented with this as well though, because I was like the same thing that Christian brought up, dude. Like this is a telltale sign. Like someone like nobody wears their belt like that regularly, and if they do, then I'm not judging them. You do you. However, so I experimented with this, and I was like, I'm gonna try to keep it in the middle. And man, like on some holsters, like the T-Rex and the Tier 1s, like the sidecar styles, it worked because I was able, like the clips had enough distance between, so I could fit the buckle in the middle. But the thing that happened was the amount of bulk, unnecessary bulk that I got from that was insane. Like it made me look like I was 20 pounds, bigger. And I didn't like that. I absolutely hated it. So then I just kind of, was like, whatever, I'll just move it to the side. It's hopefully my shirt stays below so no one can see that. But yeah, I absolutely have to move my belt buckle to the side, especially on the Hunter Concealment belt that I run now. There's no way that I'm running my clips on that webbing where the actual Jeet hook attaches to the loops. So I have to offset that a little bit.
Tanner, is that what you're wearing currently as your everyday belt?
As of now, yes. I have my gripes, but for the most part, I think everyday use, I do really enjoy it. It's super comfortable. For my work though, I've tried it a few times doing some EP stuff, and I found that over time it slowly loosens, and I don't know if it's the elastic stretching out or if it's the actual adjustment that's getting loose. So I've had times where I've noticed that I'm printing a little bit more because I have to get that thing pretty tight to allow my holster to work, like pretty good. And then also when I'm running, I noticed that since it is elastic, it does kind of bounce with me a little bit more, and I don't, it's just I didn't really like that. It just felt uncomfortable. So, but for the most part, I think everyday use, just going out, I think it's fine. It's pretty damn good.
That's one of the things I was kind of afraid of. When you start adding elastic into the equation, over time, elastic just kind of wears out. So that's why I was kind of hesitant to get a belt. But a lot of guys that I respect, they've been recommending the belt.
Yeah, I've been talking to Hunter about it. We're trying to figure something out because I'm not the first person to mention that to him. So he's trying to figure something out to fix that.
Dang, all these guys. That's pretty cool.
I got too much time. I'm on my phone too much.
I'm way too introverted. The only reason that Kue and me are friends is because Kue's much more extroverted than I am. I just kind of keep to myself, and I work on my own projects. Dang, making connections in the industry, that's awesome. I need to work harder on trying to do things like that.
Sure, it's gonna help your business out too.
Mm-hmm. That's why I got Kue to help me. Kue's gonna pass out some targets for me. And that reminds me, I've got a care package I'm gonna send to Kue. Kue's gonna send out a bunch of stuff. So Tanner, yeah, I've got a lot of fun stuff that I'm working on, and then I'll send you some. These are some of my USPSA style targets. The way these are designed is that there's three methods of of running these, right? It actually has a stand, like a normal USPSA type of stand, and you can actually you can adjust the height of it, right? It just uses like bamboo skewers, so that way you can actually just get yourself a pack of skewers, and you can make them taller, shorter. You can flip them over, so you got a white side, and then you can just, you have a bunch of no shoot targets. It's got, like I said, 3 ways of making it stand. It's got a hook back here, so if you want to put this on a light switch or on a pegboard. It's also got a kickstand here, so if you want to set it down. Yeah. Kue has that's version 2. This is version 3, because when I first made them, I didn't know what I was doing yet. And then now that I'm starting to study more of the actual competition stuff, I start realizing that, most of your competition shooters actually don't want the black outline. They actually just want a subtle outline. So this one has a subtle recessed outline on it.
Awesome. Do you know like what scale that's reduced to?
That is what I'm working on right now, right? Because like I said, this is version 3. Version 4 is I'm going to properly scale it. This is scaled at what I thought was good. Okay, so I'm going to scale it because I was looking at like the Ben Steger targets and how he scales them. So I'm probably going to do something very similar to that. So that way we can actually get good scale for distance.
Awesome, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, I'd be interested to try that.
Yeah, I'll send you a bunch.
All right. Anything else about the belt? All right. So the next question, this is a good one. Do you think it's necessary to have a weapon light on your ADC pistol, and why?
As a guy that carries a weapon light on his EDC pistol, the answer is no. You should have reasons for carrying the equipment that you carry. So this is another John Korea of active self-protection thing, where he also says that of all of the shootings that he's seen, the thousands and thousands of shootings, it's also a very tiny number of cases where he's seen people need to employ a weapon light. Now, there's some bias to that. Okay, the bias being that the only shootings that you've seen are ones where there's been a security camera there, and usually you're not pointing a security camera into the pitch black darkness. Okay. Other thing is that, what if it's World Star, right? Somebody recording on their cell phone. You're not really going to see much there. Okay, so there's a little bit of bias to that, and so we have to step back and we have to actually look at how the data was acquired. Okay, so that is some of the bias there. I love Tom Gibbons. There's like 1 or 2 things that I can kind of nitpick with the things that he teaches. One of the things he went over when I was taking one of my I believe it was the master instructor certification class with him, or I'm sorry, the master firearms instructor development course. He said that he went to the ER of the hospital over there in Florida, and he's like, of all the people that you see, like, how many of them survived their gunshots? And then, so he reported that he was told it was something about like 90-ish%. But if you kind of break it down, well, I don't think you're going to go to the ER if you're dead, right? So I think that's a little bit skewed. If you kind of look at it, I think it correlates more to handgun shootings. I think it's closer to like you have about a 60% chance survival rate. I think it's something closer to that. Anyway, so the way that you collect the data, that matters in how you can interpret it. So from John Korea's interpretation of needing a weapon mounted light, he says you really don't need one because he's seen very few instances where that was needed. And so, like I said, that's based on where the security cameras were placed, and that's based on where people were recording with their cell phones. Okay, those are the biases there. And one thing to consider is that if we're talking about encountering a bad guy, right? Bad guys aren't vampires, right? They're not just hanging out in pitch black darkness, right? They're going to be hanging out under street lights or areas where there's actually light, because we're not vampires. Okay, so if that's the case, that we don't need weapon mounted lights, why am I carrying unnecessary bulk and making the gun larger than it needs to be? Number one's kind of silly, is that I was tired of buying holsters. Okay, like I said, for most of us, we have buckets and buckets of holsters. This is the Filster floodlight. It fits the flashlight. It doesn't fit the gun. So I can put most any gun I want in here, as long as it has that streamlight on it. Okay. Reason number two is that adds a little bit more mass to the gun. So we talked before how the heavier the gun is, generally it's going to be a little bit better in helping you control recoil, just a little bit. The other thing is that it also acts as a standoff, right? So standoff being that if you actually took the gun, right? So gun is clear, right? So if you actually took the gun and you pressed it into something, right? If you press into something, maybe a hard target or a soft target, right? What it'll actually do is actually knock the gun out of battery. Okay. So if for some reason you got into a very close contact type of shooting, right, and you pressed into that barrel, the gun's going to get knocked out of battery. Okay. So what a standoff is that since this barrel was shorter, I used to not have a threaded barrel on it, but the light acts as a standoff. So that way the gun will still fire if it is pressed into a hard or soft target. So those are three reasons why I carry one. Number four would be that if it's too dark and I need to see something before I shoot it. So yeah, those are four reasons why I have one, even though I do believe that it's not 100% necessary, but it's nice to have. Like Tanner was saying, it does instill confidence that if something goes bump in the middle of the night, right? Rule number 4 of firearm safety is know your target, as well as know what's around your target and behind your target. I can point to many instances where people have shot what they thought was an intruder or a threat in the dark or behind a door or behind a wall or something, right? And they killed a loved one. Okay. It's because rule number 4, they did not identify their target. They didn't know what their target was, and they also didn't know what was around it. So those are some reasons that I carry one, even though I would say that it's not mandatory. It's nice to have. What are your thoughts, Tanner?
I would agree on literally almost everything you just said. I do want to add a few more reasons though that I carry one at least. Typically, and I switch back and forth. I have holsters that accept lights, and I have holsters that don't accept lights, and I'm usually carrying the ones that don't accept lights just because it's more comfortable. However, back to how you mentioned about the keel effect earlier, when you add a light, if it extends beyond the slide, your holsters are going to be longer as well. So if you want more leverage, that light will do that. But my only gripe with lights is, so obviously there's pros and cons, right? You have the option to shoot with both hands versus one. If you're holding a handheld, which I'm sure we'll get into in a second. But also the thing that people kind of think when they throw a light on their gun is I'm good, right? Like, hey, if I need a light on my gun, I'm good. But no, there's so much more to it. There's the training aspect of it. Just because you throw a light on your gun doesn't mean you know how to manipulate it in a way that's not gonna, make you a target essentially. And people just don't think about that stuff. They don't think about, okay, well, like now I added something to my gun, so like what do I do now? They think they're good, they're not good. It's the same thing with adding red dots to your guns, right? A lot of guys see these people with optics on the guns and they want that right away, but then they go to shoot it and they don't even know what they're doing with it. They don't know how to find the dot. So it's I think for the average everyday person, absolutely not. If it's making you uncomfortable, like if it's carrying with a light is uncomfortable, if it's too heavy, or if it's jabbing you because the holster is extended, if that's going to inhibit you from carrying, then absolutely not. If you want to go to the stats and the data from John Correa, like Christian mentioned, there's been like maybe 2 that I've seen from his videos that a light was deployed, and one of those was an accident. Which is another thing, right? That goes into training. If you're gonna draw your gun, are you gonna accidentally hit the light, and then like now you're fumbling trying to undo the light, and now you're exposed. So there's a tons of things that go into it, but it also goes into your mission as well. I know private security, law enforcement, they all have lights because they're in that capacity where they actually use it to their advantage. They're more in a searching role, in a offensive role, I guess you can say, versus concealed carriers. These are self-defense tools. We're not going to be searching for a threat. We're not going to be searching for a fight. So yeah, I don't think it's necessary. Save money, buy ammo.
Damn, yeah.
So true.
Yeah, dude, I definitely agree with both of you. I don't think a weapon light on your specifically EDC pistol is necessary, but this is just my opinion. Um, and this has nothing to do with EDC, but I do think a weapon light is necessary on your home defense pistol. And the reason why I say that is because most of the time when people break into your house, it would be at nighttime and it would be dark. And like what Christian said earlier, you want to be able to identify your threat before you shoot at it. You just don't want to randomly shoot at noises. And with a weapon light, it could also help blind whatever you're pointing at for like a few seconds. So that's why I think a home defense pistol, I think it is necessary to have weapon light, but on your EDC, it's not really necessary. And also, people don't understand or realize how hard it is to shoot with a weapon light on. Like, because people think that you just turn on your weapon light and then you start shooting, but you actually have to. The right technique is to press down the button. And when you're pressing down the button while shooting, you're losing a lot of grip with your support hand. And I tried that at a competition match at Pine Island when it was dark. And dude, it is so freaking hard. And a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to hold down the light switch while shooting. People think that you just turn on because if you leave the light on in a tactical scenario, you're giving up your position. So in a real life shooting, you're not supposed to just leave your light on. So that's just one thing. That's just something that I want to mention.
Yeah, and that goes into the to when I mentioned training. Like
Yep.
those are the things you absolutely have to
Mhm.
consider. My first time shooting with a weapon light, I shot one shot and I couldn't see anything else. The smoke from the gun
Yes.
going off, I was like, "What the heck?" But then I was thinking about it and I was like, "Okay, well maybe obviously I'm going to be shooting and moving, so I can just move to different position and then get another shot, whatever." But like you said too, those are things we have to consider. And then you mentioned momentary and like how you have to hold down the light.
Mhm.
That's something you consider, and that's why there's different techniques. There's constant on lights, constant on switches. And these are all the nuances that we have to think about, which is why I don't think it's worth it or necessary to carry a light.
Tanner, really quick. So you said that you fired a shot, right? And then your sight picture was obscured by smoke. What ammo were you shooting?
I think it was Blazer 115 grain.
Ah,
That's my
okay.
favorite, man. That's my favorite.
I like Wolf because it's
Oh,
cheap. You can-
I
I, I
miss Wolf.
I love Tula ammo. I think that's how you
I
pronounce it. Tula.
I I miss Wolf and Tula. I used to buy this. I would get like I was paying like 12, 13 cents. I just get cases and cases of Wolf and Tula. I miss those days.
the good old
Um,
days.
the good old days. It was just a silly thing. Yeah, because the first time I did like a night shoot, I primarily shoot my own reloads, and so I'm using
Hey, hold on.
Tight
Sorry,
Crew.
sorry to cut you off, but you guys keep
Mhm.
talking. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's a funny thing. So I primarily shoot Hodge and Tight Group as my powder for my
Hell
reloads,
yeah. Hell
and
yeah.
it is so incredibly dirty. This is a tracking marker for a 3D scanner. My gun's covered in it. Oh man, this is only gosh, this is probably only like 150 rounds, and this is how dirty it is. Do you use Tanner? Do you use a weapon light cleaner?
I don't. I just use like either like some gum solvent that I found or like alcohol wipes. But when I usually go to the range though, I try to keep like chapstick in my bag, and then I'll throw chapstick on the lens so I can wipe it off later. But sometimes I forget, and it doesn't get too bad.
I did that too, and I just got so annoyed with like having that greasy chapstick. You should get Paragon
Yep.
weapon light cleaner. That stuff works like magic. If you get the 3 pack, it's cheaper if you get like the 3 pack rather than the individual bottle. You need like 2 drops, and it just cleans it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I had that in my cart like not like a week ago, but then I was like, I don't shoot enough to make it. But I think I'm gonna get it. I think I'm gonna get it.
It's worth it because if you get the 3 pack, I mean it'll last you forever because you only need like two drops to clean
They
your
have
weapon light.
a optics light cleaner or optics lens cleaner as well, the OLC.
I think so. Oh yeah, like a wipe. I got the little bottle. It's in my range bag over there. But yeah, the tiny little bottle.
Yep.
I mean the tiny bottle's expensive, but it lasts forever because you only need like 2 drops. It's so good. It's magic.
Awesome.
All right, Q, go ahead. We're ready for your next question.
Shit, my bad. All right, next question. This one's more of a funny question. Um, do you think night sights and laser are practical for your EDC pistol?
Tanner, what are your thoughts?
Night sights and lasers. To give it a yes or no, I think no. Like I don't think they're practical. I think they're a marketing gimmick. There are very few occasions where they're worth it. And the only one for night sights that I found has been it's very specific time of the day, very specific nighting, or not nighting, but lighting situations. There was a time when I was just on the range and it was getting kind of dark where I can still see my targets, but I couldn't see my sights. But luckily they were night sights because it was a new gun, it was stock. So I definitely use the tritium to kind of help me find the sites. But like I said, that's very specific. You have to be in the right environment, the right time, and it's just not worth it. Lasers, again, same thing. Like I'm not trying to, get way into the weeds about it, but I've really only seen law enforcement use those for identifying people or with a shield. As far as like civilian use, no, I think they're all just marketing gimmicks.
From the training side, what do you think about using lasers for like how does that affect performance?
I I'm confused by your question. Can you like elaborate?
Compared to use so you got a new shooter, right? So your new shooter, they come to one of your classes, right? And they got a laser equipped on their gun, right? And they say that typically when they shoot using a laser. What would you tell them about them using a laser or why they should use the sights on their gun?
Okay. I see. I would tell them, first thing I tell them is, hey, it's good because it's teaching you to be target focused.
Mhm.
You're not trying to line things up. You're not trying to, you get a super precise sight picture. You're just looking at the target, trying to find the right thing and pulling the trigger. However, this can be, um, I guess, bad in the same way, right? Because you're essentially just relying on a laser, um, and kind of losing out on how to aim, you know? So yeah, that's it really. I never had that experience, so it's a tough one.
It was actually a conversation I had with my dad about that because he really wanted a laser for his handgun, and I was trying to convince him that you don't need a laser on your handgun. Um, I forgot who put out this video. Somebody put out a really good video that I watched a while ago about why they don't recommend lasers, and one of the points that they made is that it kind of puts in bad habits, right? You kind of start losing a lot of your strong fundamentals, right? Of having a good side alignment, side picture, right? Because if take a step back, right? If we're talking about side alignment, side picture, what that is when we're actually lining up our sights, right? And then actually putting it on the target, right? So everything has to be aligned, right? Target. So you're gonna have your target and then your front sight and the rear sight. Okay. But if you only focus on laser, it's going to it's kind of mess with your fundamentals, and it's going to teach you bad habits of looking for a laser, right? Other thing being that lasers, depending on when it is, if it's daytime, outdoors, can't use a
Yes.
laser. It's not bright enough. Some guys might say, well, what if you use a green laser? Okay. Well, if you're in an area, say like in the woods or the mountain, and there's a lot of greenery, well then green on green is not really going to shine. Okay, so those are some of the reasons not to use the laser. The other, like I said, the bad habits of instead of getting a good presentation, right, good side alignment, side picture, okay, on target, the laser kind of messes with that. And like I said, it's not useful for all situations, especially if we're talking about outdoors. This particular one, I do have it set up with laser. TLR6, this is not the recommended one by people who know what they're talking about. This is not the recommended one. This is like 150 lumens. The reason I run a laser on this one in particular is because I wear contacts, right? And since I wear contacts, one of my thoughts is that if I do have to use this gun and I'm not wearing contacts, I'm blind as a bat, right? I can pretty much just put the laser on him. And if I can get a blurry picture and a blurry laser, I'm pretty much good. That was one of my thoughts on this. But that was just a thought. I have not actually tried that in practice yet. But it's very low profile, so I don't really sacrifice too much by having something like this. Because, like we said, you don't really need weapon lights. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts on lasers. I think it teaches bad habits. It doesn't work in all situations. Whereas your sights pretty much work in all situations. The only situation for my case would be if I don't have contacts on.
So that setup, that TLR6 with the laser on it,
Mhm.
when I went to that gun store, it was actually one of our shields as a rental gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried it out, and for one, zeroing it and it holding zero was like a nightmare. That was a constant battle. It could be the laser itself, could be the mounting method of the light. Who knows? Doesn't matter. It never held zero. And then the other thing that I remember distinctively was the offset. I would put the laser on something and I'd hit like 2 or 3 inches high, and I'm like, oh yeah, because the offset, and that kind of got me thinking about it as well. Like, well, if I'm at a further distance, for one, I'm not going to see the laser, and for two, if I do somehow see the laser, there's going to be complete like it's the offset's going to be way off. So, um, yeah, I don't like going back to the original question. I don't think it's practical at all.
Oh, definitely, definitely. This is one of my theories. So I need to go to the range sometime closer to night and take off my contacts and try it. One of my other thoughts is that this would be really like a closer contact type of gun, like under 7 yards. If I absolutely did need to employ that laser.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with both of you. I feel like in order for you to see the laser, you have to be up kind of close, right? And at that point, you don't really need laser too, because if you train enough, you could actually point and shoot, and you still hit the target at like 3 to 5 yards. So that's why, in my opinion, a laser on your EDC pistol is kind of pointless. With night sights, I think it's kind of pointless also, unless the only time I find night sights practical if I was searching for my gun in the dark, because like for example at nighttime I like to my house is pitch black, and I like to put my gun at a certain spot, and I would like to see like three glowing dots to go and like grab my gun in the dark. So I think that's the only useful thing about night sights. So yeah, I definitely agree with both of you.
Dude, I talked to a few guys who actually put glow in the dark strips on their guns
Hmm.
for that exact same reason.
Okay. I should do that. I should do that. Yeah. Anything else? All right.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't think any of us talked about like why night sights are bad, right? So at the end of the day, they work. They're sights.
Mhm.
If you know your fundamentals, you can absolutely use them and be accurate with them. But let's say it's going to get marketed to you and sold to you like, hey, you can find your sights in the dark. Okay, well, if it's dark time, can I see my target? And
Mm.
it's pretty obvious you're not going to be able to see your target, but you can see your sights. Cool, but that's not the goal. That's not the point. The point is, can I see the target? So let's say you do have a weapon and light, and you actually activate that light.
Hmm.
What you're going to find is that those tritium ampules in those lights, things that glow in the dark, are going to be black. So it's null. It's basically using blacked out sights. So if you guys are in the market for aftermarket sights, I recommend like a fiber optic front,
Hmm.
a blacked out rear, or if you don't trust fiber optics because those sometimes break, um, you can get anything high visibility front sight, and some sort of blacked out rear sight.
Really quick, Tanner. I've heard people talk about this, but I forgot the exact reason. Why does everybody hate 3 dot sights? Because the 3 dot sights, I mean, that's the standard for most firearms sold nowadays. Why does everybody hate the 3 dot sights?
So Jeff Mao, the owner and CEO of Tentacle Holsters, he actually did a video on this on his YouTube, which I'm sure you guys, if you guys are curious, you guys can look it up, Tentacle Holsters. But what he did was he did a demonstration of when he lined up the dots versus lining up the actual sight post. And you can have the dots lined up, but the sight posts were not lined up. So it's almost like an illusion. So sure, it might help you find the sights, but you're not going to be as accurate as you want to be.
Mm-hmm. What about the Glock cup and ball game? Do you think that's trash, or do you think that's worth something?
I think it's kind of subjective. Some people like them. I really liked them. That's honestly one of the reasons why I went to Glock. Because
Mhm.
I was like, I like their sites. They're super unique. It's really cool. Um, but again, it's like the same thing. Those little like the painted things, whatever. Like, sure, you can line it up. It'll get you close, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be the actual post, like the physical posts themselves, not the paint on the sites.
I was gonna say that I actually like Glock sights. The only thing I hate about Glock sights is that it's plastic.
Plastic, yeah.
You,
Yeah,
you two are the first guys to ever I've ever heard say that you actually like the OEM Glock sights.
Have you guys ever seen the movie, the two cops, LA cops, Jake Gyllenhaal?
and that got killed by
End
the
of
Mexican
watch.
cartel.
End of Watch.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So
yeah.
there's a scene in there where they're in an alleyway and then that freaking technical comes up and on the body cam he lines up the sights and he hits him in the head. He's like, I got him. That was when I was like, dude, that's sick. I freaking love Glock sights. So,
All right. Moving on to the harder question now. And these questions are going to be mainly for you two to answer because I feel like I'm not knowledgeable enough to answer these questions or don't have the credential to answer these questions. So these are going to be for you two to answer. These are training questions. All right. So for the first training question, in your opinion, how should you train for concealment?
but Christian, you're the instructor here.
Hmm. Hmm. No, no, that's an excellent question. Um, I think the hardest thing to answer about that is where do you get good training? Okay, because everybody knows about guns. Just go to a comment section on any video where there's a gun in there. Everyone is an expert in firearms. Everyone is. Either they're military or they're law enforcement or they've been shooting all their life or their dad was a cop or their uncles, brothers, girlfriend has touched a gun before, everybody's an expert. Okay. But very few people actually like really study it. And not only there are people who really study it, but there are people who study it, but they don't change their opinion based on better, newer information, right? There are people who they learned the best that they could ever learn in 1995, and they're still teaching that in 1995. So, kind of an example of this is like when it comes to low light shooting. I took a low light class with guys who were they were SWAT guys from the local county SWAT. So they're teaching a night class, right? And so, but the techniques they're teaching, it's literally all police textbook stuff. Okay, so it's all police textbook stuff and everything, right? And so they don't really get into the why. They got a little bit into the why, saying that, oh, FBI teaches this because that's what they've always taught. And then I took a really good class. This was Dan Brady of Apache Solutions, and so Dan Brady, he's also law enforcement, but then he got really into the why of the technique, right? And he really kind of explained in depth of here's the different types of flashlights. Here's what lumens is versus candela versus um, what we call photonic barriers and things like that. So he really dug into the why, and that was way different than me talking to other law enforcement SWAT guys who are career, right, who are like 20-30 year career. So when it comes to training, there's different level, right? And so what I would say is that it's tough because I mean, if somebody's a 30-year SWAT veteran, then why shouldn't they know the best techniques and everything, right? But if they're just kind of regurgitating institutional knowledge that they've been doing since like the 90s, 2000s, then you're using okay technique, but there's newer techniques, and we have a better understanding of our equipment and how to use it, right? So, what I would say is that when it comes down to it, how do you kind of vet your instructor? How do you get good training? And for somebody outside of these circles, right? So for like a lot of us, we run in these circles, so we know which instructors have good reputations, and we know which instructors are kind of a joke, right? Um, it's tougher. Okay. So we mentioned there were some Facebook groups that we like. Mike, like Tanner was mentioning, like the deliberate training group. That's a very good one. There's the how to tell us you don't train group. There's some really good ones out there. There are some better certifications than others. So, for example, like the NRA pistol instructor certification is kind of the joke of the gun world, right? Because if you can stay awake for like 2, 3 days in a classroom, you can get it. Okay. So that's like the easiest one to get. Okay. Um, the some of the better ones is like particularly range master, for example. Range master is very well regarded in the community. A lot of the top instructors in the community, they have range master certifications, and they attend TACCon, which is that large conference where some of the best instructors in the community, they get together and they talk about, you know, newer tactics. And that's one of the cool things I like about Tom Gibbons. He's old, he's like in his 70s, but he still teaches that, you know, there are newer techniques. Like he teaches about appendix and, you know, the advantages of appendix, whereas you have somebody like uh who was it, you guys, who's that instructor? He says every gun has a decocker if you're carrying appendix. Who's that? That is
Ernest
Uh,
Langen.
no, is that Masad Ayub?
no, not Masada Ayub. That is Hackathorn, Ken Hackathorn.
Oh,
I think
Ken.
it's, yeah. Yes. But yeah, so that's there's like a 10. I might be wrong in that. I think it's Hackathorn. I think
Ken
I could
Hackathorn.
be wrong. I could be wrong. But one of those older guys. But that's what he says. That's why. But anyway, so yeah, it's better to learn from instructors who are learning newer things, who are learning new things, who are advancing their techniques. Because the way that we shoot now is different than the way that we shot 10 years ago, which is way different than the way that we shot 20 or 30 years ago. Okay. Our techniques are different. We learned more. And, you know, everything's really changed over time. So it's important that we pick instructors who kind of keep up with, you know, what are the better, newer techniques. So for somebody looking to kind of train and get better, especially in terms of concealed carry, I would say learn from a good instructor, vet your instructors. Um, Good resources for especially concealed carry is Filster, right? So we like Filster as a company. We like their products. We like them as subject matter experts. They've got their YouTube video series. They've got their Facebook group, which is the Filster Concealment Workshop. Another one is actually surprisingly pretty good is Lucky Gunner. Lucky Gunner, they've got some actually pretty good videos talking about concealed carry. They've got some good videos on shotgun stuff. They have a lot of good videos talking about the different types of ammunition out there because they are an ammunition reseller, so they should have some really good videos on about ammunition. There's other good ones. I'm kind of blanking at the moment, but those are just some of the ones that come to mind talking about, you know, good resources for learning about concealed carry, just like the free stuff. When it comes to actually getting hands-on training, um, like I said, that can be a little bit trickier because it depends on what area you live in. Okay, most we're the kind of guys where we don't mind traveling and paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to train with bigger names. Most people aren't like that. Most people, you know, if they're local cops teaching a class, they'll kind of take that class. So it's tough to say because I don't know who's teaching your area and I don't know their credentials. Okay. But I will say if the only certification they have is an NRA basic pistol, probably not the guy that I would learn from, right? If they do have some law enforcement background, that's a little bit better. But typically, what we see with law enforcement is that if they may be teaching just what we call institutional knowledge, which is, you know, I was taught this in the 90s, and so I'm still going to teach you stuff from the 90s. So it's tougher to say. But if you go, like I said, you go to those groups, like deliberate training group or like how to tell us you don't train group and like Facebook, and you kind of just stay in there and just kind of pick up information from them, and then you can ask around like, hey, you know, who are some recommended people in my particular area of the country, and they can probably give you guys some recommendations because people who are in the community who are, when I say the community, I mean any Facebook group that doesn't say nation in it. There's certain communities that focus on training and they focus on having better technique and just overall not just buying guns, but actually improving skill level. Those are the people that I would look to for their opinion. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but that's a tough question to answer very quickly.
It is very tough. Yeah, there's tons of nuance.
Mhm.
Uh, well, for me, if if you're a brand new shooter, you haven't really been around guns, you just bought one, um, I would actually recommend those NRA classes. And the reason why is because I believe that we, as the gun community or whatever, I think we need levels or instructors that teach all different types of levels of instruction. And as a beginner, right, the things that I want you to focus on are they're going to be the fundamentals and the safety of shooting. How to handle the firearms, how to aim, how to reload them, whatever it may be, just the fundamentals, the basic intro level stuff. So I think those are good instructors to have. Now, obviously, I wouldn't go to them for any advanced stuff unless they offer it and you had a good experience with it. But to start training into concealed carry, definitely learn the gun, learn the safety rules. Just get familiar, gain some confidence, and then from there start to venture out. The first thing I want you to do though is definitely get training on how the thing works and how to be safe with it. Um, from there, I don't think anyone has mentioned dry fire yet, but this is a perfect time for you to experiment and just kind of build a foundation. So from concealed carry, the obvious different thing from like an outside the waistband setup versus inside the waistband is that it's inside versus outside. So learn how to like find a way to um, clear garments, multiple garments, find ways that you like to carry, find ways, that like this is your time to experiment. And it never ends, but like this is a perfect time to do that. So yeah, just do that. If you guys don't know what dry fire is, it's basically you completely unload your guns, and you basically just you're playing with them essentially, right? I don't mean to say that as like you're gonna treat the guns in a bad way, but you're experimenting. You are finding like, hey, how do I find my sights out of the holster? Like I can't do that, and this is your time to practice and to build that foundation. Or if you want to practice reloads, this is your time to practice reloads. Like get the basic surface level knowledge and then start to experiment, dry fire, be safe about it. Obviously treat all guns as loaded, but be safe about it. Gain that confidence. And from there, yeah, definitely venture out and get some more advanced level training.
All right, so this question's for you, Tanner. But before I ask you this question, I want to speak from my experience. And since you're a master class in carry optic, I want to ask you this question. And for those people who don't know, it is extremely hard to get a master class in USPSA. Okay, so before I ask you this question, so when I first got into concealed carry, right? I thought that going to the range and shooting bullseye, shooting slowly, what that was considered training, and I didn't realize that I didn't know what real training is until I started doing competitive shooting. And when I started doing competitive shooting, I realized that I just been playing with guns. So the question I have for you is, um, do you think competitive shooting like USPSA, IDPA could enhance your concealed carry skill?
100%. In my opinion, I think competition style shooting or just any timed event, I guess you can say, is an excellent way and probably going to be the closest thing to the real thing. As a civilian, we don't get the same opportunities that law enforcement military do, where they can go force on force and use it's called sim rounds, or basically like real life ammunition, but it's like a paintball. We don't get those opportunities, and if we do, we're taking a big hit to our bank accounts. Um, so the closest thing we can do is compete, and it's great. Like you, I started the same way. I was drawn from a holster. I thought I was quick and I could put bullets in the same hole at 5 feet. I thought I was good to go. My friends all competed. They all kept telling me, "Dude, you're good. You're good. You need to compete." And I was like, "Nah, man. Like, I don't want to be running around." My ego got in the way, and that was the biggest thing. It was my ego, my own self. Till one day I was like, "Screw it. Let's go." Whatever. Went there, got my ass beat, but I learned a shit ton. I took a lot of homework home with me, and I learned like, so I can be faster off the draw, so I can be faster off the first shot, so I need to find my sights faster. My transitions are terrible, so I can transition faster, and that's what honestly like lit the fire to get me to take this stuff seriously. And I mean, at the end of the day, too, like I wasn't anything special. I was just a dude who carried my gun for self defense. And one of my friends who's pretty serious about it too, kind of put it this way to me was, okay, Tanner, you're carrying a gun, so you made a decision and you put that gun on. You made a decision that you might kill somebody today. You might take someone's son, you might take someone's daughter, mom, father away. Can you do that? And I was like, holy crap, like this is actually a serious thing. Um, and competition shooting was a thing that just made me push to a higher standard. Because, like I said, I thought I was good. My ego got in the way, but I seen how good these guys actually are. And now that concealed carry is allowed in competitions, I think if you have your concealed carry, get out there and compete. Find what good people do. Ask them questions. The shooting community, especially the competition community, is awesome. Everyone's there to help out each other, have a good time. Um, so yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, and,
Tan-
and that. Oh, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Christian.
oh, really quick. I was going to say, Tanner, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. This is the FBI pistol shooting qualifications. Okay. If somebody tells you that, yeah, they can 100% pass this with top score, what would you tell them? Like, do you think they are a competition shooter? And do you think that they also could be a masterclass shooter if they could easily pass the FBI shooting qualification?
I don't. I don't. I think a lot of those institution-based standards are, and I'm not trying to dog on any agencies or whatever, but I think it's a qualification for legal statuses. It's something that they can be like, okay, well, our officer is qualified. This is state approved. This is whatever approved. They're trained. It's just a check off a box. There's a higher standard than that. There are shooters out there who are crushing that in half the amount of time it takes, or they're shooting way more accurate, whatever it may be. And there's always a higher standard. So again, competition shooting, there's always gonna be someone better than you. And it's just like I said, it's just great. So don't ever settle. Basically, just know that you can always get better, and there's always someone better. And if you want to, reel it back into concealed carry, a good way, and I think Milspec Mojo mentioned this, was that he trains in the matter of he is going against himself. So he's always competing against himself. He's always, imagining like, hey, if I got to a gunfight against myself, would I win? So it's tough. But it's good. It's a good mindset to have, especially when you're making the decision to take someone's life or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And this is not my original thought. This is something that I've kind of learned from other instructors who are much more skilled in this topic than I am. But these types of qualifications, this is the FBI shooting qualification, right? So you would think that, the FBI, they would have like the highest standard. I think it's generally believed that uh, the hardest, most difficult government one would be like the federal air marshals. They have a very interesting history that if you're going to be an officer in an airplane, you got to shoot somebody inside of an airplane, you better be the best shot. So I think JJ Rakaza, he was a federal air marshal, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So JJ Rakaza, he's like the champion pistol shooter. He was a former federal air marshal. But if we kind of look at this qualification, this is pretty slow, I would say, right? Say, take for example, 3 yards, straw and fire 3 rounds, strong hand only, switch hands, fire 3 rounds, support hand only, all in 6 seconds. That's pretty slow, right? And if we talk about some of the different types of shooting that we can do, take for example like a bill drill, right? A lot of times that's kind of like one of the standards of can somebody shoot a bill drill in under 2 seconds, which is all AVOX hits, which is like a group in the center of the chest at 7 yards, 21 feet, from concealment in under 2 seconds. That's very difficult to do, right? Now, if we kind of extrapolate that, right? What do real shootings in the real world look like, and do they kind of compare to this, right? Because if we ever watch police body cam footage, none of that looks like this, right? None of that looks like if a police officer had to shoot a bad guy at 7 yards, that they drew and fired 5 rounds in 5 seconds, right? 5 rounds in 5 seconds is draw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You never see that, right? It tends to be panic fire. Okay, it tends to be panic fire. And so a lot of the guys I've talked to, they said that, yeah, a lot of these qualifiers, the way they're set is it's kind of, we just got to get you decent enough to pass. Like who was mentioning, it's just it's kind of like legal cover that, yeah, you have basic understanding of how to use a pistol. Um, yeah, so I definitely, when we kind of look at the type of training standards out there, it varies a lot, right? And even a qualifier like this, it really doesn't set like officers up for success, right? If you could get 100% on this, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a great shooter. You might be a pretty okay shooter, but these qualifiers actually realistically represent um, what an officer would actually see out there, and these would be FBI standards, right? And FBI typically, they're not going to be your beat cops, right? FBI is typically going to go after the baddest of the bad guys. That's typically what they do. Okay, and so they hold themselves to a higher standard. Yeah, so that's my thoughts of that. When it comes down to training, it's it can be tough to find out, who are good instructors out there, and what are they teaching. And that's not to say that I'm dogging on cops. I know a lot of great cops out there, and a lot of them are very good shooters. But there's that institutional knowledge, like I was saying, which is we just kind of repeat what we've been teaching since like the 80s and the 90s. And then there are those who they really want to push that skill envelope, and they really want to do something different. And I think with competition shooting is all about having that speed and that accuracy and that accountability, and just pushing that level constantly. Whereas a lot of your traditional training like that, like who was mentioning, you know, when you go to the gun range and you look at the targets that they offer, like the NRA B-27 target, right, which has like the really wobbly silhouette, and then the target is like way like the bullseye is like way too low. Um, that's kind of institutional knowledge, right? The institutional shooting, where it is that slow, precise fire, which doesn't accurately represent what we know happens in the real world.
I was going to say something similar to that. And one thing, so if someone asked me, how should you train for concealment? And in my opinion, as a civilian, I think the best training will be competitive shooting like USPSA, because the chance of you as a civilian drawing from the holster with a live gun is very slim. A lot of gun range doesn't allow you to do that. But in a competition setting, you get the opportunity to draw from the holster with a live gun. And you don't have to compete with, competition gear. You could actually just go and compete with your carry gear. And in a competition setting, it will force you to shoot faster than you can and move. You will get the opportunity to run and move around, and also test if your gun is reliable or your gear is reliable. So that's just my opinion. I think competitive shooting is the best training for civilians. I'm not saying that what you do in competitive shooting is what you're going to do in real life, but um, you will have a better understanding of shooting than just standing at the range, firing at one single target and not moving around. And also, if you're on a budget, I feel like you save more money doing competition, because at a competition match, local matches usually what 120 rounds or 60 120 rounds, compared you going to the range and you don't know what you're doing, you're firing like 300 to 400 rounds, and that's a waste of money. And a competition match costs maybe less than the range fee. So that's why, in my opinion, competitive shooting is the best training for civilians. Yeah. To understand gun handling, to understand how to shoot faster, and the fundamental of getting better at shooting.
Yeah, I've had that question though before of is competing the same thing as training? And I think it just depends on how you take it, right? Like
Mhm.
when I first started, and I still do it to this day actually. I compete and I take it as training. Some
Mhm.
guys don't do that, and that's okay. But like I said, every single match is preparing me for the next match and preparing me for real life, essentially. Um, and then, there's some guys out there who will always say like, okay, well, that's competition. You're shooting at targets that aren't shooting back at you. You're not reloading under cover. You're, whatever, all the stuff that they want to say, right? But at the end of the day, shooting is just simply shooting.
Yes.
You can shoot good. That's just one part of the equation that's going to help you out with everything else. You get good at shooting and you apply those skills to whatever context you need to.
Yes. Agree 100%. And I always tell people if you want to shoot at target that shoot you back, then airsoft. Go do some airsoft. That way, you will actually have some people shooting you back. It's not real bullets or anything, but you still get that pressure from someone that's shooting back at you. So, in my opinion, airsoft and competitive shooting will be the best training for civilians, and also dry firing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I,
Uh,
I grew up playing airsoft. It's a ton of fun. It's not too expensive. I mean, if you really want to get all the fun guns and stuff, it's expensive. But one of the tricky parts of the airsoft is that it's you literally a bunch of kids, maybe some other people around your age, mostly a bunch of kids. Uh, one of the trickier parts, if you're just talking about like a public airsoft field, it's kind of a free for all. It's kind of a crazy mess. If you can find groups that are a little bit more serious, maybe in like, well, okay, here's the other thing, is that airsoft tends to be either like a public free for all kind of thing, or they tend to be more mil sim, right? So everybody's you're talking about the guys running like the night vision and the really nice equipment and everything, but they're really focused on more of the military simulation. It's for the context of civilian concealed carry, it's a little bit harder to translate those skills. But if you get a bunch of buddies and then, hey, like, let's just go buy $100 airsoft pistols and we'll get face masks and we just go shoot each other, put each other in scenarios. And so those are some of the things that we do in our classes. Just get a bunch of airsoft pistols, right? I give you keys. You're trying to get in your car. I give them a 15-pound sandbag baby, and I say, all right, something's going to happen to you. What are you going to do? Right. And so somebody maybe tries to mug them. Somebody's asking for money. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to do.
And another thing too that I come across too is that a lot of guys are afraid to compete, or they say, oh well, you're just gaming it. I'm not trying to game, and I don't want to game life. I don't want to wait for a standby and then a beep and then I can go, or I don't want to follow these rules of the 180 or whatever, because that's never going to happen in real life. And I'm like, okay, fair, sure, but we game everything in life, not even gun related. We game things, right? An example would be, you can do whatever you want, but I know a lot of people who when they arrive to their house, before they park, a lot of people take off their seatbelts before they actually stop driving. Essentially, you're gaming that. You know what's coming, so you're gonna already do it, right? And you're like I said, you're doing everything. You're gaming everything in life. You're doing everything prior to it happening because you know what's gonna happen, so you're gonna game it. So, if you're one of those guys who are like, oh, it's competition, it's not the same. Well, think about it with that mindset, with in that perspective, and it's essentially the same thing.
Oh yeah, I absolutely 100% agree with that. I think something I mentioned before is that everything is a game. Okay, everything is a game. We weigh the pros and the cons, and then we try to make the best decisions, weighing out the outcomes. Um, Everything's a game. The prizes are just different.
Yep.
how about this? Everything is a Squid Game. If you fuck up, you die.
It's a good way to put
Yeah,
it, though.
yeah. Um, yeah. Damn, I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah. So pretty much everything in life is a competition. Keeping. But I think the people that always say, "Oh, that's just gaming," I think those are people who just like to use that as an excuse to not get better. Pretty
Yep.
much.
Yep. Same thing that I
Tanner,
have. It's the ego.
Yeah.
Tanner, you have any airsoft guns?
I used to when I was a kid. I used to.
You and
I got
True, she gets.
I got I had when I used to shoot SIG, I got one of those pellet pistol one though of the 320, and that was a ton of fun. I'm not gonna lie, that was a ton of fun. Just doing drills in the garage was super fun. But I got tired of cleaning everything up, so
I was gonna say you guys should get some buddies together, get some airsoft guns, get some face mask, and run some scenarios. It's a lot of fun.
that sounds really fun.
All right. So next question. Um, and then when I ask you guys this question, I'm actually gonna go use the bathroom. I'm drinking way too much water. You guys could go ahead and just keep talking. So this is the next question. What are things you should start focusing on training first? We did kind of cover this a little bit, but if you guys think that you guys could dive a little bit deeper into that question, go for it. And I'll be back. Go ahead, just keep talking.
Yes. So Tanner might have some different thoughts than me. When it comes to what kind of things you should be focusing on training, number one, definitely safety, right? You got to have the basic safety, right? So that way you're not shooting yourself or hurting your loved ones. Um, the other thing that I constantly kind of think about is how much skill do you really need, right? Because if you're watching, say, like active self-protection, and you're actually watching, how much skill do these people need in that gunfight to make it alive out of the gunfight? It seems like you don't really need a lot, right? And I find that kind of surprising. So that's one of the things that I think about. This was something that Lucas Botkin talked about. How he's saying that you don't need to be taking a ton of training classes all the time. He says like one or two training classes a year, and then just working on different skills. That's what he recommends. I was thinking about that. I was like, I think I might agree with that. That you don't necessarily need to be taking like a ton of different classes all the time. It's not to say that you're not going to learn a lot. It's that is that the most efficient use of your time and your money, right? So, so getting back into the question of what is it that you need to learn? Definitely firearm safety, and then two, this kind of goes back to the instructor thing, working with a competent instructor to build like a good solid baseline of skills, right? Solid baseline of how good is your draw, how good is your sight alignment, sight picture, your trigger control, your recoil management, right? Just having a good baseline, I think that's a great place to start. Also a little bit overlooked is the legal aspect of it too, right? Being really understanding not only your rights pertaining to uh, use of lethal force in self-defense. There's also a lot of small things. My This is a funny thing, but the concealed carry class that I teach, actually, I love teaching it. Okay, most of your higher end instructors, they recoil in horror at the thought of teaching a concealed carry class, but I really enjoy it because I go hard into the legal aspects of it, right? And I talk about, these are the things that you're actually going to face, right? Nobody's going to teach you how do you interact with a police officer, right? Or how do you interact in all these different types of potentially deadly scenarios. And so I really enjoy teaching legal stuff because that's often overlooked. And one of the big things that's important to me in my classes is that I don't teach based on tactical ninja theory, special forces stuff. I teach based on these are real scenarios, and here's the news article, here's the video, right? We can actually watch what happened, what was the aftermath, and what could we have done better. So that's how I like to teach. I'd like to teach a little realistic approach. um so yeah, I would say that when it comes to what kind of skill you need, firearm safety, and having a good baseline, and that means a lot of times working with a good instructor. I don't think that you need to be taking a ton of classes all the time. I think like maybe one, two, or three good classes a year, and then working on some fundamental core skills. I think that's a more efficient use of your time. What are your thoughts? Oh,
Sorry,
Tanner, if you're talking, you're mute.
gonna get my thing fixed.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said. That's perfect. Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up the active self-protection videos because I would agree with you. Like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it takes a lot of skill, but this kind of goes back to what I just said previously of what standard do you want to hold yourself to? And if you want to reel this back into the heart of the conversation here, this is concealed carry, right? This is your life. This is your loved one's life, someone else's life, that may be taken with this. So even though the data shows that most people don't have, I guess, a lot of skill, but still make it out alive, I think the question we have to ask here is, okay, well, how much of that skill was actually applied, and how much of it was luck? And I don't know about you guys, but me, I don't want to really rely on luck. Um, I want to rely on something that I know that I have something that's actually attainable. Um, so really, I think just to add on to everything you said previously, I think just having the right mindset, right? Getting out of your own way and understanding that like there is a higher standard that needs to be met here, and always push for more. I was actually taking a performance pistol class with Tim Herron, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and there's like two guys out of that whole class. So the rest of us were all like competition style shooters or cops who wanted to get better at shooting. But those two guys were like, dude, I'm just a dad who has a Ruger LC9, and I just want to learn how to just shoot this thing better in case I need to protect my daughters. And I was like, at that moment, I had a light bulb moment, and just like it was almost kind of refreshing. And I was like, dude, that's actually like really awesome that you are holding yourself to that standard, because if you look at the stats, a lot of people buy guns and they don't even consider shooting them. So yeah, I think to add on everything you said, I think mindset is just going to be another thing, right? So having the right, obviously physical skills, but the right mental skills.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Dang, showing up to Grandmaster Tim Herron class with the Ruger LC9. But I applaud them for going. Most people, they just say they just go into YouTube comments to just say that you're doing everything wrong. So
Yeah, yeah.
actually go into a class. Yeah, I applaud them for doing that.
For sure, I did too. They're awesome guys, and they actually were shooting. I mean, they were shooting 10 times better than what they did when they came in, and they went
Nice.
home with so much confidence. Like they kept thanking him, and it was just awesome to see.
That's awesome.
And I know his family's going to appreciate that too. It's a pretty heavy cost investment, but it's an investment to your life or someone else's life.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What are some of your thoughts on it?
You guys pretty much said it. I think um mindset is the most important thing in my opinion. And learning being confident with your gun handling. Like I said from the very beginning of this podcast, if you're confident with your shooting skill or like with your hands, you're not going to find a way to escalate that just to use your gun or your hands. um it's mainly people that are not confident with their skills that tend to use their gun as their first resort. So I think, yeah, my mindset and safety is the first thing that anyone should focus on before they actually start shooting a gun or get into fights. Yeah.
Counterpoint. Jack Wilson. So for those of you not familiar with the story of Jack Wilson, this was at a church, right? And in this church, a guy walks in, right? And he's got a shotgun hidden under his trench coat, right? So one of the ushers comes to talk to him and says, "Hey, is everything okay? Or are you just kind of walking around?" So the guy pulls out a shotgun, right? And when he pulls it out, a couple things start happening. Okay, so the usher close to him, he starts backing off, right? But maybe about 4 or 5 yards away, one of the guys from the church's security team, he starts standing up. Okay, so we keep on talking about the sub-second draw, right? Being able to draw and fire in under 1 second. Okay, this guy had a 6 second draw. Okay, because you can count. He's getting up, he's reaching, he's trying to get his gun, and he's telegraphing, "I've got a gun and I'm going for it." Right, and so one of the things that like John Correa always talks about is that it's not a good idea to draw your gun when somebody has a gun drawn on you. And so the bad guy, right, he shoots the security guy, right, because he's standing up, he's trying to reach back there, he's trying to get his gun back there, and he's telegraphing, "I got a gun." So he shoots him, right, he dies. And then he shoots the usher, who's a couple feet away. The usher dies, right? And then Jack Wilson, he's also on that church security team, and he's about 15 yards back. 15 yards, that's about 45 feet. And at a distance of 45 feet, in under 3 seconds, he draws, fires one shot, just nails the guy, and the guy just drops like a sack of potatoes. Okay. And so Jack Wilson, he's actually a firearms instructor. Okay. And so that's actually one of the drills that we run in some of our pistol classes is we run the Jack Wilson drill, right? And in 3 seconds, you have to draw and fire USPSA A zone on the head box. That's a tough drill. Okay. So I use that to kind of teach my students that you're not as good as you think you are. A lot of people they think they're hot stuff. Me included. I definitely I definitely always think I was hot stuff, and that was one of the things that kept me from competing, is that I would actually have to test that. Okay, and I knew I was going to suck, and that's one of the things that stopped me. The other thing is I have a very ADHD personality where I latch onto things and then I get deep into it, and I wasn't really ready quite yet to put in the time and effort into it because I knew it was going to suck me down a rabbit hole, and it really has. These past couple months I've done nothing but watch Ben Steger, Tim Herron, just any videos I can watch. Anyway, so getting back to it, how much skill do you need? Depends. Okay. Do you need a sub-second draw? Only if you have a sub-second problem. Okay. Do you need to be able to hit an A zone at 15 yards in under 3 seconds? Depends. You might be in that situation where you need that. Okay. Or do you need to be like Eli Dickens, where you've got to hit a target in a food court with people running around with a gun with sights that are broken, right? Apparently he got into a motorcycle accident, so the sights on his Glock were actually broken, and he hit the guy at 40 yards in a food court filled with people. Yeah, that's incredible. Okay. So you don't get to pick when bad things happen to you. Okay. You only get to pick when you're ready for them. And I think that's very important for a lot of people to understand that you're not as good as you think you are. But when you start developing, you start recording data, right? And you start seeing, okay, this is my baseline. And like Tanner was talking about, you start competing against yourself, and you can start to say, okay, I'm improving, and I can measurably show that.
Those are great examples.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
Thanks.
for the Eli Dickens, I thought it was a Hellcat.
Was it a Hellcat? Or was
I
it a
think
Glock? I can't remember.
I think it was a Hellcat.
I thought it was a Glock 22.
Damn, man, all these stories, man.
No,
But
hey, survive.
all right. So this question, yeah. So the next question is, what are good training aids and gimmicks? I cannot answer this question. I don't have an answer for this question.
Tanner, what are your thoughts on the Mantis dry fire system?
So I'm not gonna lie to you. I used a couple of them. I thought so. What happened was at first I was like, okay, this is fun, this is cool, but then it just ended up turning to be just for fun. What happened was is that I was looking for the laser hit the target, and I was like chasing patches or whatever, and like it wasn't. I kind of like thought about it. And I was
actually, really quick. Do you want to explain that system really quick to the viewers who don't know what it is?
Yeah, so Mantis is it's a dry fire inert system, and basically you put it into your gun, so it makes everything safe. And then you have like a target. I think you can get like an app and put it on your phone, or they have like separate stands or whatever. It's a target, and you basically you basically shoot the target, and then it gives you a score. It tracks your accuracy. It tracks it like gives you all these metrics of like trigger pull, and it shows you like a graph of where your sights are going or whatever. So again, marketing, right? They market that, and a lot of people are like, dude, that's freaking awesome. I get all this data. I can assess it. I can, I get visual feedback. It's great. And at face value, sure. But I didn't actually learn this until I took that Tim Herron class. And Tim was like, this is a joke. It's literally just to get your money, because you can get all that information just by paying attention to your dry fire, watching your sights. Your sights are going to tell you everything you need to know, and you won't notice that until you actually pay attention to it. Because that's what happened to me when I used the Mantis, was that I wasn't paying attention to anything. I was just relying on the app, and that app, the data shows it's nice to have. It's cool. It's a cool feature, but it can be misleading. So I think the dry fire gimmicks, or are they gimmicks? I think yes, to an extent. If it's going to get you to do more stuff with your guns, then sure. Just don't take it or use it in a way where you're just gaming it, essentially. or you're just trying to play the game and win stuff and be the best person or whatever, use it to your benefit. But I haven't found the need for it. I haven't found I haven't used any of the data to perform myself. Most of my self improvement has been simply from dry fire, me paying attention and experimenting. That's been the biggest part. So yeah, Mantis, I think that's a gimmick. Then you have what else is out there? Like laser dry fire cartridges.
Have you heard of the Cool Fire Trainer?
I have. That's another one. That's it's simple. It's a marketing thing. Cool, like face value, cool, but if you actually use it, sure, you're getting some physical feedback, but it's not the same. It's just not.
I'll kind of piggyback off what you're saying. So yeah, so with a Mantis system, essentially what you do is you take your handgun, and there is a small sensor. Okay, it's a small little square sensor that goes onto their gun. You can either mount it on the top, or you can actually mount it on the mag well right here, or on the bottom of the magazine right here. And so what it does is it's a G sensor. Okay, when I say G sensor, I mean like think of like the Wii video game console. That's what it is. It's like the Wii controller, how it kind of knows its movements a little bit. That's what it is. It's essentially kind of like strapping the guts of a Wii controller to your gun. So what it does is it knows that you're grabbing and you're drawing and coming up. Okay, so that's what the Mantis knows. Okay, so Calvin Trong of Firepower United, he talks about that, and he says that the problem with it is that it has a very specific way it wants you to draw. Okay, and that is a very slow, smooth, deliberate draw. Okay, which is not bad. That's not bad if you just follow it strictly based on that. But the problem with that is that it's not the most efficient, and it's not the most efficient draw. Okay, it's not bad. But like we were talking about with like the laser, okay, because you start looking for the laser and you start losing a lot of your fundamentals. So yeah, it's interesting because there are people that I think John Korea does like the Mantis. I think he's talked about it. I think he does like it. I could be wrong, but there's one or two people who are SMEs out there who do like it. But most of the other higher level, like master, grandmaster level shooters, they don't like it because it's not really giving you the best data. And yeah, like we were talking about, like these master, grandmaster level shooters, they'll tell you that you don't really need anything. You just need to literally just draw the gun, fire the gun, and then pay attention to what your sights are doing as you're shooting. I do have a Cool Fire Trainer. So for those of you who don't know what that is, Cool Fire Trainer it's actually a replacement barrel. Okay, it'll actually give you full recoil of your gun. Okay, first thing is I could not get mine to work. All right. I'm an engineer. I'm very good at getting things to work and fixing them. And I got all the parts and all the things and I follow all the instructions. I never could get mine to work. It works fine for other people. I just could not get mine to work for me. Okay. What I was trying to do is I was trying to learn a sub-second draw. And I was actually trying to do the Modern Samurai Project Black Belt standards. And so I was trying to get really good at a sub-second draw and a sub 2 second concealed build drill. And that's what I was learning with it. Okay. Funny thing is when I was shooting it, I actually think it has higher recoil than an actual recoil. So that was a funny thing. I don't know if I charged it incorrectly, but I felt like the recoil is actually a little bit higher than what my gun actually does. So don't need a cool fire, okay? Because with a cool fire, you fill it with CO2, and then it will do full recoil. But in my opinion, it's actually a little bit too much recoil. But you don't need that. It's very expensive, a couple $100, and I regret purchasing that. So I don't think you need the Mantis. I don't think you need that. One of the dry fire tools that I really like is the Ace VR. I just got Kue into this. Tanner, I recommend looking out for one of these. A bunch of big names are using this, like Tim Herron's using it, JJ Rakaza, Eric Graffel, Billy Barton, he's a top level carry optics grandmaster. He just got into it too. And so essentially what this is you wear an Oculus Quest, either a Quest 2 or Quest 3, and it's a game. It's a video game. Okay. And it does what video games really do, and it gamifies things. Okay. It shows you a score. it shoots confetti and it plays music when you get top score, and it gives you daily login bonuses, right? And so that gamifies. It's like, yeah, I want to come back and I want to shoot every day because I'm going to get login bonuses. I'm going to get all this cool stuff, and I'm going to dry fire. Now, the reason why this is recommended and most other dry fire things are not recommended is because this helps with accountability, shot accountability. Okay. So when we're talking about dry fire, and we're talking about like transition from like target to target, you have to keep in your mind your own accountability, right? That when I press that trigger, was I actually on target or not, right? And you've got to keep track of that. And it's a little bit harder to do if you got multiple little targets that you're trying to track. Okay. This tracks all that for you. It tracks your splits, tracks your hits, right? And tracks your time between transitions. Everything is tracked, and it's tracked very well, right? It's tracked very well. This gun is weighted, and so it mimics the real weight of my actual competition P320. It fits in my actual competition P320 holster and everything. So it's very close. The only thing about dry fire is that they say practice makes perfect, but it's perfect practice that makes perfect, right? And so you can develop really bad habits if you're not careful. And so I shot probably like 75, 80,000 rounds in this. And then I went live fire for the first time after like 75,000 rounds on this. And I could not properly pull the trigger on my P320 anymore. Okay. Because I had gotten used to this trigger. This trigger has like a crazy short reset. And then when I went to go shoot my P320 competition trigger, the P320 has actually a really long reset. And so I kept short stroking the trigger and over again. And I was messaging Kue, like I was pissed. I was pissed because of my stupid gun. But then I realized that it's not my stupid P320. I kind of screwed up my dry fire. So the only way for me to get around that is that I actually had to pick up the real gun, and I had to do a full trigger presses on the real gun. And then I messaged Kue. I'm like, okay, I fixed myself. The problem wasn't this. The problem was me. The other thing that to be aware of this is that when there's a couple of videos out there of guys who are just getting into USPSA, and they've got top scores in ACE, but they're still only like a C class shooter, right? And me personally, what I think is going on is that number one, they don't have the confidence yet to be as aggressive in person as they are in game, because they've got top scores in game, but they're still only a C class shooter. Number two, I don't think they fully understand grip yet. Okay. Kue can tell you that when you start doing this game, your hands will be really sore. I've got calluses in my hands from gripping this gun. And so before I started this, like I said, I've taken a lot of different training classes. And so I have a pretty good idea of, how to grip the gun well. And so when you start applying that grip for like hours at a time every day, your hands are going to be very sore. Okay. So what I think is going on with these guys who have top scores in game, but are still C class shooters, is that I don't think their grip is great. Okay. Because I think when they're dry firing, they're still kind of treating this like a video game. Okay. They're still treating it like a video game toy. So they don't really know how to apply the correct pressure to control recoil. That's what I think is going on. And that's what I think is preventing them from being higher than a C class. So if you know how to grip a gun properly, then your dry fire is going to be much better, right? And that's one of the things that actually helped me, is that I actually improved my grip from doing this. Okay. I improved my grip because I started realizing that if I'm not crushing with my support hand, this little finger really throws you off, right? Most people don't realize that. A lot of people think they shoot low left because, they have too much finger, too little finger, or, there's all these different reasons why. A lot of times it's just that your support hand is just not crushing the gun, right? And so I was able to really find that sweet spot of that grip where I'm crushing with my support hand. My dominant hand I try to be as loose as I can, right? I try to apply as little pressure as I can with my dominant hand. And so everything is all about keeping that gun flat as I'm shooting. So I recommend definitely trying this. I think this is a great tool, but I think it can really screw you up if you don't have a good foundation getting into it. So that's one of the things that I've been really liking lately.
Yeah, so I wanna go back to Mantis real quick.
Mhm.
So Billy Barton, I'm glad you mentioned him
Mhm.
because he actually has a great video on YouTube on his channel. I think it's called Spec Train. Um, and he actually goes over the Mantis, and he's talking about the good things, talking about the bad things. And the thing that I can remember the most right now is just that he mentioned that you only get data from one shot. So, and I mean, there might be instances where you only need one shot, but most of the time it's probably gonna be multiple. So you only get data for one shot. Um, the ace thing, I have messed with it only a few times. And yeah, I found the same exact thing. There are a lot of guys there who have the top scores, and it doesn't show live fire. And the thing about dry fire is that essentially you're supposed to dry fire and then validate it with live fire. So obviously there's some disconnect there for those people. It could be the grip thing, like you said, Christian, but I don't know. I never really dug that deep into it. But Tim Heron. So after that class, me and him, we have a great friendship now. And I was actually talking about it because when this product first came out, I was really, really criticizing it. I was like, is this just like a Mantis with like a visual screen now? Like, is this just another
Oh,
game? So
I was extremely skeptical when it came out too.
yeah, so I just kept asking him questions, and eventually I think we settled on the part that it helps him the most, at least, is his vision and processing speed. It can be very fast paced, but like you said, you have to be very careful because you can develop some bad habits from that. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much what I found too when I messed with it a little bit. Was that it definitely helped my vision. Like it forced me to increase my processing speed. Um, yeah, and another gimmick. So this is aside from dry fire. This is actually a live fire gimmick. Is your targets, right? So a lot of gun shops they have all these targets. It's a zombie target or it's a diagnostic target where it has a graph and it's you hit low left, here it is, too much trigger finger, or you're healing the gun or whatever. And I think that's completely trash, utterly trash. Because like I've tested it out. I've done the things that it says, and it's my shots were all over the place. It was not accurate to what it was saying. So yeah.
I've got a fun video. Ku can put it in if he wants. I take one of those diagnostic targets, and I actually take this gun, which is like one of the more difficult guns to shoot because of its small size. I'll hold it upside down and I'll shoot it with my pinky. I stole this from somebody. I think it's Travis Haley who I saw it from, but essentially I can hit dead accurate by doing everything wrong because my fundamentals are still there, right? I still got a clean sight picture, I still got clean sights on the target, and I still got a clean press, and I can still hit very accurately like this, even though I'm doing everything wrong. And so that was a very fun demo video I did.
You should definitely post that video up.
All
Because
right, cool. I'll send
I
that
was
to
one
you.
of those people. I would go to the range and I'd use that, and I was
Mhm.
like, okay, so I'm healing the gun too much, but it wasn't even close. So, um, yeah, if you're listening, don't buy into that. Just get a normal target.
I could speak a little bit of the Ace VR as a B class shooter. B class shooter and someone who compete a lot. All right. So I think the Ace VR, it is a good training tool, but you should not depend on it. Why do I say that? It's because um I shoot like a master jam class in the Ace VR, but in reality, I know that I won't be able to perform that in real life. But what Ace VR has taught me a lot is vision. And also because I'm using the Meta Quest 2, so the quality is kind of trash, but it's still good enough to practice my vision, and um it also gave me the confidence to push faster. So I feel like after playing the Ace VR, if I was to go shoot real life, I will be comfortable pushing myself to be faster, to be more aggressive. So I think for me as a B class shooter, the only thing that the Ace VR benefit me is vision and pushing faster and be more aggressive. And the reason why I like the Ace VR is that I get to redo the stage as much as I want to compared to actual match. I only get to shoot one time and it's a cold start. So I feel like I don't really get the opportunity to really practice on my vision at a match because I only get to do it one time. But ever since I've been doing Ace VR, been playing with it, I get to do the stage over and over, and it made me understand what vision is. Because a lot of instructor, they could talk about vision all day, and as a B class shooter, I understand what they're saying, but I can't see what they're seeing. So that's why I do like the Ace VR. I do recommend it, but I would say don't depend on it though. Like use it as a vision tool to and be more confident at pushing yourself to be more aggressive, but don't think that the Ace VR is going to make you a better shooter. Yeah. So that's
it
my opinion as a B class shooter.
yeah, it can if you know what you're doing,
Yep.
but you got to be careful because you
Yep.
can easily learn some
Hmm.
horrible habits if you don't know what you're doing. So I wouldn't necessarily tell a beginner to pick this up and then learn all their
Yep.
lessons from this because I think it might screw them up.
Yeah, I think it's more like mindset. Like what is the
Mhm.
purpose of why you're playing this game? My purpose is I'm practicing my vision. Not my gun handling, not my actual shooting, but it's more for like my vision to like really focus. Yeah.
Hwansik Kim, top level grandmaster, he is all about that vision focus.
Yeah. Anything else?
Um, yeah, just kind of a quick summary of that. I would say that yeah, most people don't understand that this a lot of this good training stuff it's free. You can do it for free. Guns are expensive, ammunition's expensive, but just a lot of your fundamentals. Dry fire is free. All the grandmasters and master level shooters will tell you that you can get really good just taking your gun and just shooting it dry. Absolutely build a ton of skill doing that. Oh,
Or,
yeah, just like Tanner said, you build your skill with dry fire, and then you verify it with live fire. I think that's something that majority of people do not understand. And also, really quick about Ku, when Ku says he's a B class shooter, that doesn't mean he's like an okay shooter. Not it's very hard to get to B class. B class shooters easily of like all gun owners like easily outshoot like 98% of them. And like Tanner in a master class, yeah, that's very hard.
all right. So the next question, this one is gonna yeah. All right. So the next question is, if a new gun, excuse me, if a new gun owner wants to take a class from an instructor to get better at shooting, how can they tell if the instructor is good or not? What are things they should look for?
That's a good question. It's a good question, and it's honestly like I don't think there's a definite answer. This topic has come up multiple times within the competition realm, at least, and just the performance shooters. But this really goes for any instructor. Um, and I've talked to a lot of instructors and their opinions on this, and we never could really settle on a definite answer. Um, but I think a good route to go is obviously look them up, right? Try to find social medias. If they don't have a lot of information on them, then I'd be kind of skeptical. But if you can find more stuff on them, look them up heavily. Find out the qualifications, find out their certs, and if they compete, that's even better. So you guys can find those results by going on practicescore.com. Um, and you can simply look them up and you can see their recent matches and you can see how well they place and whatever it may be. But like I said, those are just like things you can look up and see. However, my opinion on this is very, I guess, different from others, right? A lot of people would be like, all right, cool. I see that they don't win matches, so they're not a good instructor. Well, whatever. Cool. You can teach me something. You're a B class shooter. I'm an M class shooter. Most people will be like, why would you ever learn anything from a B class shooter when you're a master class shooter? Like, okay, cool. But as a student, if I'm paying money to this person and they give me something that I can take back and it benefits me, in my opinion, that's a good instructor. As a student, right? That's a student perspective. So I think it's super tough to say because I mean I literally just counter I just said something, I guess, the first thing I just said. So yeah, I can't really answer that question. It's super, super tough, but I think if you are able to pull anything from that instructor, I think that's a good instructor, and you just benefited yourself. And as humans, right? As humans, if we can learn something, that's the point is to learn something. So again, I don't think it really matters as long as you're gaining something from that person. Safety is another thing too. If they have any videos of them of teaching, whatever, and they're doing, kind of some sketchy stuff. For example, like having students down range while they're shooting, or you see a lot of students with unsafe gun handling and it's being unmissed. Um, yeah, those are some things to watch out for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I always like to use analogies when I talk about subjects. So let's say that you start playing Call of Duty for the first time, right? Never played Call of Duty before, okay? And you're just sucking at it, right? And so, when you play Call of Duty, there's like all these different guns out there. And if you're a Call of Duty player, you know that some guns are good, some guns suck, right? But if you're brand new to the space, how are you going to know that? And the way you learn that is by, you start plugging into the community and you start learning, the community has already kind of figured out what is optimal, what is good. All right. And the community's figured out that, these are good, these suck, stick with these, right? And that's a good way to kind of approach it too, right? If you kind of get involved in the community, and they'll kind of give you opinions of, these instructors are good, or this instructor, I like some of his stuff, I mean, not all of his stuff, and that's a good way. Get plugged into the right communities. If your goal is competition shooting, start plugging into competition shooting communities, and they'll point you that way. Um, if you not all communities treat skill the same. I mean, if you're in like the Palmetto State Armory fan group, I love Palmetto State Armory, but their stuff is not the best. But if you're in the Palmetto State Armory fan group, they all think it's like the best thing in the world. So it depends, but that's a good way. Get plugged to the community and then ask questions and kind of learn from there.
Yeah, no, the community thing is great. Had I known that when I took a few other classes, like if I could just reach out to somebody like, hey man, you took his class, like what'd you think of it? How does he teach? Is he just like a military drill instructor who's going to yell at me the whole time, or is he actually someone who's going to break something down and explain the why? Um, Another thing I wish I would have done, which you could probably do for most instructors, is actually reach out to them personally. Most instructors should have like an email or a phone number you can call, and you can kind of ask them questions there, and you can kind of get a initial judgment based off of their responses. But yeah, I would say just vet instructors how you would vet anybody, really.
Yeah, so for me, if I was to look for an instructor to learn from, I think first thing I would do is to follow their social media, and I would see if they're constantly trying to improve. So for example, some people might disagree with me on this, but like Lucas Bakken, um, I've been following him from when he started his channel, and as his channel grows and as he become a better shooter, he goes back and talk about his old technique, how he what he been teaching was wrong and he's trying to learn more. And also I feel like you want to learn from instructors that are trying to learn, that's also see them as a student and not just an instructor. So I think that's something that you could, for new shooter, you could start follow them first and see how they progress with their shooting skills. Are they actually learning from other people, or are they just have too much ego and don't want to learn anything from any other instructor and think that don't their way is the right way only. Like for example, Ken Hackenthorn, he, if I didn't pronounce his last name correctly, but Ken, he said that you don't need a red dot. I mean, yeah, you don't need it, but you can't just say that you don't need a red dot and not have a legit reason why. I feel like he's not. There's a reason why a lot of people use red dot. The question is, have you actually trained enough to say that you don't need a red dot? So that's just my opinion. Is to seek out for instructors that are also trying to improve themselves. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and another thing too that I want to add is like if you look at football coaches or NBA coaches or any coaches really, right? Like they know the game, they play the game, um, but they might have not been the best players,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's a saying out there that says like those who can't teach, something like that. And that's I've experienced that as well. So it's like, yeah, sure, they don't have the national wins, they don't have XYZ, but when I go to their class, I'm still learning a bunch. So it's like super nuanced, right? There's so many different situations where you don't really know. But yeah, just get as much information as you can, and then that's really up to you at that point.
And
Yeah.
also, I feel like when you look at an instructor, you got to ask, what are they doing right now? Are they just using their credential to like back them up, or are they trying to like what is it that they're doing right now? Because there's some people that will see a cop, right, and be like, okay, that dude is a cop. He should be good. I'm gonna go learn from him. But the question is he what is he doing now? Now that he's not a cop. So I think that's, a red flag if they're not trying to what's the word? Damn.
Progress.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Christian, you were gonna say something?
I lost my train of thought. I think I was going to talk about Ken Hackathorn. Yeah, Ken Hackathorn. I mean, he was back in the day.
Yeah.
He was definitely one of those guys who was really pushing that performance and that skill. He was very highly regarded. But nowadays he's kind of stuck in his old
Yeah.
ways. He learned one thing and he's done learning. And so that's why he says that every pistol can be a decocker if you carry an appendix. But anybody else who shoots appendix can tell you that, man, appendix, it can be very comfortable to carry. And in terms of speed, it is the fastest way to draw a concealed gun, right? And well, I'm sure somebody can think of another way that's faster, but generally it's the fastest way to draw a concealed gun because it's right in front of you, so it draws so quickly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like Jerry Beck, he's even
Mhm.
though he's old, he's like constantly training, constantly trying new
Mhm.
things. So that's why I do enjoy watching Jerry Miculek a lot. Not just because he do cool things, but he's constantly improving and constantly working on his skills. So yeah. Uh, all right. Here is the final and hard ass question. All right, and this is for you two to answer. You guys ready?
All right, hit us with it.
How and when do you know you're competent enough to carry a pistol for self-defense?
Christian, you seem excited. Go ahead.
Oh, that is a good question. My bread and butter is teaching regular people, and mostly a lot of new gun owners or people who have never held a gun before, right? That's an excellent question. Um, I kind of take it back to that you don't get to pick when bad things happen to you. You only get to pick when you're prepared for them, right? And that there's only one gun that matters. And the only one gun that matters is the one that you have immediate access to, which is why I tell people, don't just immediately go pick up the coolest gun out there and go trick it out and everything and add all your red parts and everything. Focus on getting something simple, right? And learn how to carry it safely and effectively. Okay. So in terms of, when should you be ready to carry a gun? Um, I think as long as you've got a strong understanding of your safety fundamentals, right? A lot of people, when they start concealed carrying for the first time, I know definitely when I did, is that they don't carry with the round in the chamber, right? So they carry with a loaded magazine. So they have to draw the gun and they have to rack the gun before the gun's ready to fire, right? John Correa of Active Self Protection, he talks about the stopping and he says, here is 20 videos where that person did not have the opportunity to draw and rack the gun, right? Or they drew the gun and they forgot that there was no round chambered, and they lost their life because of it, right? And that there's many instances of that. Okay, so um, I think once you have a good understanding of safety and understanding of the basics of being able to draw and fire a gun safely, I think that's a good place to start. Okay. no one's ever going to be truly ready to draw a firearm and potentially end someone's life. I don't think you could ever truly be ready for that. Okay. But if you don't put yourself in the position where you're training for that and preparing for that to potentially happen, then like I said, the gun cannot help you if you do not have immediate access to it, right? So yeah, get good training, learn good safety, and don't don't get complacent. I know that we've talked about how realistically you don't need a ton of skill from what we've seen. You don't need a ton of skill to survive a deadly encounter and use a firearm in self-defense. However, there are instances with people who have had a high amount of skill and they were able to save many lives because they did have a high amount of skill, right? And there are many instances where we see that, if somebody had been there with a high amount of skill, that they could have saved many lives. Okay. So you never know what's going to happen. Okay. Also, it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy shooting. I enjoy learning about firearms. I enjoy learning better technique. I enjoy being part of the community. I enjoy talking with you guys about this, right? And that's I, there's many layers to it, but yeah, having a good fundamental understanding of firearm safety, right, and being able to draw and fire your gun safely and effectively, right. I think that once you can do that, then you're ready to go. But take it to the next level. Take some good classes from some good instructors. Do some dry fire, and then record where you are. Get an idea of your baseline skill. How accurate can you be, or how fast can you shoot? There's some good drills out there. The build drill is one we've been talking about, where you draw from concealment and you fire 6 shots and you try to get them all within the center A of a target. You don't worry about getting sub 2 seconds like we keep talking about. Focus on just being comfortable with that gun and just learning a lot of those fundamentals. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I think is a good place to start. What are some of your thoughts, Tanner?
Yeah, so I want to harp on the safety thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Learn the gun, right? I said this earlier. Learn the gun, learn how it works, learn how to reload it, clean it, all that stuff. Learn your firearm safety. Learn the 4 rules. And then, like, once you learn how to shoot, once you learn the safety part of it, if you can accurately place rounds on a target, I think from there you are fundamentally set. The hard skills, but then here comes the hard part, the tricky part, is your mindset again. Are you mentally ready to carry a gun? Like this is a privilege that many don't get to have, and many people lost their lives because of it. Are you mentally prepared to possibly draw that gun, get into a gunfight, take someone's life? And I kind of relate it to having your first child, right? The question is, man, am I ready to be a mom? Am I ready to be a dad? Like someone's gonna rely on me to give them life. And like Christian said, you're never really essentially ready. All you can do is prepare. And there's a quote that I heard that I absolutely love, and it's called preparation is no separation is in the preparation. So again, it's just all mindset. Once you get all the fundamentals done and safety, you just need to prepare yourself. You need to be ready. You need to think about everything, and then from there, I think you should be good to go. Once you make that conscious decision, like, yep, I'm okay to defend my life today, and I might take someone else's life, then you're good.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with that. Yeah, you're never fully prepared for it, but it's better than the alternative of just being there with no options and potentially being at the mercy of evil people. Right, Ku?
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep poking you on that.
Yeah, you guys are right, man. No, no, definitely. I definitely agree with both of you. Anything else, man?
Yeah. So earlier we talked about what amount of lights. And I mentioned to Christian that we're going to talk about something later on.
Yeah.
We never touched on it. So I figured to those listening, you guys are probably questioning, well, if I don't have a weapon on light, how am I going to see my target then? Like, how am I going to illuminate them? And most people, they do not consider this as part of their everyday carry or carry at all. And that's actually a handheld flashlight.
Mm.
So even though I don't carry a whip on the light, I'm okay with the handheld light. Now, if you look at police officers, right? I know we're not trying to compare civilian life to like an occupation, but usually officers are scanning, patrolling using a handheld light now because they don't want to draw their gun and be scanning around looking for something or somebody with a loaded firearm pointed in every direction, right? Because at that point now you're breaking the rules. Um, so have that handheld light. I carry that thing. Sometimes I don't carry a gun, so I carry that light. I carry that light in addition to my weapon and light. So just consider having that weapon or a handheld light as part of your EDC. Um, and if you get good training behind that handheld light, you can make very, very accurate shots, very fast shots, single-handed only. I think Christian has a video where he posted up one of Dan's Apache Solutions drills, and he performed excellent with his handheld light. And that's pretty tough to do. And most people don't think about that kind of stuff. So you absolutely need to PID your target. And for those who don't know what PID is, it's positively identified. Um, so use that handheld light and use it well. Get some training under that.
Really quick on the handheld lights. I took Dan Brady's low light class, and I was using it was like a 70 $80 flashlight. I forgot what it was. I don't know, remember if it was a Phoenix or something. It was one of those cheaper Chinese brands, right? Tons of lumens, tons of candela, under $100. I was like, this is perfect. Uh, and it's got like 4.8 stars, right? And I'm running it in the class, and then it just dies in the middle of class. So I get upset and I return it. I get another one, and I'm running it again, and it just dies. Okay, so like who was mentioning, it's something you don't think about. That if your life counts on it, is your stupid little flashlight gonna run well? Even if those Amazon reviews are great, right? So some of you guys might have heard like, why are you spending $300 on a flashlight? It's because these are like the these are the current these are kind of like the current like recommended flashlight. Surefire, Streamlight, Mod Light, Cloud Defensive. Those are the ones you really go for if your life depends on it. So yeah, I don't recommend any of like the cheaper stuff. If your life depends on it, get a good flashlight.
Yeah, I ran into a lot of people when I got introduced to handhelds.
Mhm.
Because I carried one, everyone was like, dude, you're spending that much money on a freaking flashlight. Like, dude, my phone has a flashlight. And I'm like, okay, well, let's introduce some photonic barriers. And the simple way of photonic barriers, it's basically like imagine a headlight, right? Like you're driving onto an oncoming car, and that light pretty much blinds you, and your headlights are like you can't even see your headlights anymore. That's a photonic barrier, is another light. Or my example earlier of shooting in the dark and that smoke, right? That's a photonic barrier. So when you introduce these new like these lights with high candela, that high candela is basically going to push through those photonic barriers and give you the advantage. So that's why we run these handhelds and these very expensive things because they're simply an advantage, right? It's a force multiplier, and as Ku mentioned too, right? Like you can disorientate people with the light. There was an incident where I actually ran into a road rage incident, and the guy followed me home, and he parked on the street. I waited outside because I knew something was going to happen. And he came up and he was like, "Yo, man, were you guy that in that truck?" And then I had my flashlight out, I shined in his eyes. I don't know what he was thinking. He probably thought I had a gun, but they can't see because all they see is a bright light. And he backed off right away. I didn't even say a word to him. So, I mean, right there, I just saved my life, saved his life, just because of a flashlight. So these things go. They're super underrated, and I can't tell you how many times that I've used my flashlight to find keys I've dropped or something I've dropped, and it's probably the most used thing in my everyday carry.
Tell us about a couple of minutes. Tell us about lumens and candela and why the heck are we paying $300 for a flashlight when we could
Yeah,
just get
so
an O light?
so when I got introduced to I guess mod light or handhelds in general, mod light was the one that came up, and I found this out being in those forums and in the community. A lot of the law enforcement guys were pushing mod light very heavily, and when I saw the price tag, I was like, dude, no way! Like I cannot afford this. I'm not doing it. Um, But then I was actually introduced to some videos where they did a comparison of different lights at different distances, testing it in the rain, testing it in fog, and all this type of stuff. And that's when I saw the difference. So these lights are high candela, high lumens, Christian kind of explained what those are, but these lights are performing lights, and that's what they do. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that answers the question or not, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean you pretty much nailed it. Is that number one is that they're extremely reliable. Okay. Um, the cheaper lights, like the Chinese lights with the weird names on Amazon, don't trust your name to those because I have a bunch of those and they fail when you need it the most, right? I thought, this is like 3, 4 hour class. This light's gonna work fine. I don't know why. I had two of them fail. Okay. I, they just detect that, there's high stress and then they shut down. I don't know why. Okay. Um, but if you get a mod light, if you get a stream light, if you get a Surefire or Cloud Defensive or any of the other ones, they're much better built. Okay. If you look on the mod light's got a cage code, right? Which means that they have sold some or they are trying to sell these to military use, right? And so, yeah, that's why you get something like that. Um, Most people don't know the difference between lumens and candela. A lot of people just say, "Oh, this flashlight has 6,000 lumens." Right? Number one, if you're going to Amazon, if it's not a name brand, then that means that the lumen rating is a complete lie. Okay, if it's not a name brand, then the lumens are a lie. It's just some Chinese dude. He just threw whatever he felt like on there just to make his lumen count look better than whatever other sellers are out there, right? And that's not a dig on Chinese guys. That's that's just a dig on the Amazon game. Um, this is actually not that high of lumen. This is only 600 lumens, but this is actually high candela. Candela is the throw. Um, so generally, there's two things that the light does. There's throw and there's spill, right? So throw is that distance that it'll reach, right? So about 50,000 candela. This thing has pretty good throw. It'll shoot a far distance. It's got what we call the hot spot, that center of the light. And then the spill is just that general area, right, where you can illuminate an area, which is great because if I'm looking around my house, right, I'm saying the backyard, right, and I'm looking to see, is somebody snooping around? I want candela because I need to see far. I want spill because I want to see a wide area. So the mod light generally is a very very good balance of the two. Um, I've got a Blazer LEP, the laser excited phosphor lights. Those are 100% throw. They've got like 300,000 candela, and those things will shoot out to like a kilometer, but they've got no spill. Okay, so it's a laser of white light. You can put some diffusers on there to give a little bit of spill, but I think that these are much better balanced than the LEP flashlights, and so I still recommend a traditional LED over an LEP. There's some guys I've talked about flashlights, and they recommend the same thing too, but not just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and since you mentioned Mod Light, so other than the reliability, the biggest selling point for me is their modularity. Right, so I have a handheld. This has a head on it that I can take off, and I can actually put it on my weapon light because this is a mod light pistol light as well. And this is a lower profile head, so I can just simply swap that out. They take the same batteries, and they're also rechargeable. And I can whatever use case I need it for, I can simply swap it, and I'm good to go. So that's another reason why I choose Mod Light. But I know there's other cheaper brands out there that do this essentially the same job. Like Christian mentioned, Streamlight is a pretty popular one, and it gets the job done. I mean, if you look at a lot of law enforcement agencies, they are running Streamlights.
If the Streamlight is the best $100 light out there, I would say. Um, I think for $100, you really can't find much that you could bet your life on. But Streamlights for about $100, yeah, I would go with them. Streamlight actually they just released some new lights for Shot Show with some high candela, so I'm looking forward to those.
Yep, yep.
And just a recommendation for people that are looking for like expensive light, like Surefire, Mod Light, Streamlight. Don't buy an Amazon because the chance of you getting fake is very high. So if I was to buy like or even including optics like an SRO or the brand name, I just go buy at the store because the store they get it from the manufacturer. Amazon, you will never know if you're gonna get a fake one or not. So don't buy Amazon, even though it may be like $50 or $100 cheaper. So that's just a recommendation. Yeah.
That happened to me. So I have a couple RMRs, right? And so I was making a video for social media. I was like, hey guys, this is how you spot a fake RMR. And then I was looking at the RMR that I bought, and I'm like, wait a minute. Something's not right about this. And then I was looking at RMRs have black screws. The RMR that I was showing in the video, you had white screws. I'm like, wait, did Amazon send me a fake? And yeah, anybody can sell on Amazon, so anybody can just post up fakes. The packaging is really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really easy to fake packaging. So yeah, when it comes to life saving equipment, Amazon's not my first choice.
Yeah, I would not creep out on life-saving equipment. If it's just, for fun, whatever, sure. But if it's potentially going to save your life, I would definitely consider getting the quality.
Yeah. All right, man. And pretty much that is it for the podcast, man. I think we did a pretty good job tonight, dude. A lot of good information. But yeah, before we end this, tell the viewers where they could find you. Christian, you could start.
Yeah. So you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Instructor Khang. I've also got my training development company called Mountain Tribe Development. So that's where you can find me.
I'm on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram as well. And it's just my name, Tanner Liang.
Yeah, I will post the links to your guys' social media in the description. So yeah, dude. Man, I did not expect us to go this long, dude. Right now we are pretty much at 4 hour mark.
Oh,
Yeah, so hopefully the viewers find this video helpful. I definitely learned a lot of things, even though I was the host, and even though some of these were my questions, I learned a lot from you two, man. So I appreciate you guys taking your time to come out and talk with me.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
dude,
you having me on.
I had a great time, dude. Tanner, it was great talking with you. I learned a bunch from you.
You as well, brother. I'm
All
glad we
right.
met.
All right. All right.
Yes.
So are you guys have a good night? And I'm gonna stop recording right now.